to the bottom of the slides just to see.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, looks like it's
Yep,
right.
that's it. That's good. And would you be able to also pull up the agenda in case they want to reference some of the,
Yes.
prior packets or whatnot?
Yeah, I can do that.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025, and we are at Carmel City Hall. I'm calling this special meeting of the Carmel-by-the-Sea City Council to order at 10 a.m. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Barron?
Here.
Councilmember Buder?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Delves?
Here.
Councilmember Dremel?
Here.
Mayor Byrne?
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. Welcome to all attending today in person and remotely, and thank you for investing your time and attention to help us manage our city. This meeting is conducted in a hybrid format. You can view this meeting and participate online with comments on Zoom, or live stream or watch this meeting later on the city's YouTube page if you don't wish to make a public comment. Nova, could you read the public comment instructions for today?
During special city council meetings, public comments are permitted only for items listed on the agenda. After each item on the agenda is introduced and after questions from the council, the mayor will invite public comment on that item. In all cases, each speaker has 3 minutes to speak unless otherwise adjusted. We'll first hear comments from those present in person, followed by Zoom participants. While stating your name is optional, it helps to identify speakers in the meeting minutes. Remote or in-person participants who do not comply with the requirements of the Brown Act will be muted.
Thank you. Today, the only item on the agenda is one order of business. Orders of business are agenda items that require city council discussion, debate, direction to staff, and/or action. The item today is to review and discuss the pickleball policy adopted by the Forest and Beach Commission and provide provide direction to staff regarding steps moving forward, including the development of possible related amendments to the Carmel-by-the-Sea Municipal Code for consideration at a future city council meeting. We have scheduled 4 hours for this meeting with 20 to 30-minute break around noon. I'd like to give an introduction before we get started. We've called this special meeting because pickleball play at Forest Hills Tennis Court has become a subject of strong debate in our community. Many residents value the recreation and social value it provides, while neighbors living near the courts have voiced significant concerns about its impact due to noise and congestion. I want to acknowledge and thank a number of parties for the significant time and effort already invested in this issue. This includes the players and neighbors themselves, our prior city forester, the Forest and Beach Commission, backed up by city staff, and the Carmel Police Department, which played a role in trying to enforce expectations without a city ordinance. And we appreciate all of this work, and we hope to use what's been learned from these experiences as we deliberate today. We are now at the point where the council can fully engage in this discussion and hopefully provide clear direction to staff. As council, our role is to look at the facts, hear every perspective, and then decide what best serves the long-term interests of the village. Throughout this process, I ask that everyone keep comments respectful so that all voices can be heard. With that, I'll turn it over to Tom Ford for his staff report. Tom, come on up.
Well, good morning, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, council, staff, and the public. My name is Tom Ford, and I'll be presenting a relatively brief summary of what staff and the Forest and Beach and ultimately the Forest and Beach Commission has done over the past year in response to a council directive to explore a pickleball policy.
Real quickly, Tom, Nova,
Yes, sir.
can you get the presentation on the council screens, please? Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Certainly. We will be asking for council's feedback on the policy that the Forest and Beach Commission did ultimately adopt, as well as ask you to provide guidance to staff in regards to the possibility of bringing a first reading of an ordinance, which would reference athletic usage at Forest Hill Park, which again was recommended by the Forest and Beach Commission. Just a couple of housekeeping matters before we get going. On the screen here, in front of us is actually the same slide deck that was presented to the Forest and Beach Commission last time this matter was addressed in March of this year. I'll kind of be skipping through these slides, but I primarily have this here to use as a bit of a reference as opposed to going through kind of a rehashing like a comprehensive every detail of the of the process. The whole background is relatively well documented, both in the packets and in prior Forest and Beach Commission meetings, and I've seen almost all these faces here before. And I believe they're well versed in this matter and have been here, several times and have seen an iteration of this very presentation. So we intend to make this about 10 minutes for our segment to provide a brief overview, a refresher of sorts. And we will be happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation, please. The chair of the Forest and Beach Commission, Tamara Mickey, is here with us. We do have Justin Ono, who essentially oversees the parks, and our Public Works Director, Ken Wysocki, as well. So jumping into the recap. It was 2011 when the Forest and Beach Commission first voted to incorporate 2 pickleball courts into Forest Hill Park tennis courts. A decade later, the commission voted to strike 2 additional courts, so for a total of 4. Over a couple of years, there was escalating noise complaints that resulted in, just over a year ago, council directing staff in the Forest and Beach Commission to explore a policy to find a balance between pickleball and tennis activities with the surrounding residential uses. We had begun that by reviewing city policies, related city policies. We got a ton of resident input, folks that live here, folks that don't live here, pickleball players, non-pickleball players, tennis players. We did quite a bit of researching what other cities have done in regards to their policies and their rules. Including the cities of Monterey and Pacific Grove and Yountville. We spoke with officials at all 3 of those cities quite extensively to kind of get our bearing of options for how to handle this. At each subsequent Forest and Beach Commission meeting, a total of 6 where the Forest and Beach Commission reviewed this matter. We had covered certain possibilities such as implementing the use of quiet materials, quiet balls, quiet paddles, limited hours, sound barriers. We had gone through a ton of different possible options. At one point, the Forest and Beach Commission did recommend that that staff collect some rudimentary sound data, which I would highly emphasize the word rudimentary. This is not scientific, and in fact, after speaking with the sound engineer, he had said, this is an iterative process, right? He said, hey, good job, but ultimately decibels are not the best parameter to measure this. These are impulse, a different kind. It can be categorized as a different kind of sound. He was like, we don't have impulse measuring equipment, and that typically takes a professional. But in the end, when we had met him out here, he said, hey, the data is extremely clear on this. I don't think that you need to get a sound study for this. The information is very clear. But just for covering our bases, there were 3 locations surrounding the courts that were within 100 feet that we had taken some measurements. And not that this is particularly relevant anymore, but this was the data that we had come up with, that we had presented at prior Forest and Beach Commission meetings. We had compared it at that time to a chart in the found in the general plan, the noise element. It's essentially a chart of the levels of acceptability of noise, but again, these are measured in decibels. And per the sound engineer, we weren't quite on the right track there. That's not a representative way to measure this type of sound. But the general plan does mention several very helpful goals here. I'll just read a couple of them. One of the goals in the noise element: preserve Carmel's overall quiet environment, reduce noise levels compatible with existing and future land uses, support programs to reduce community noise levels. And it also discusses public facilities, and in the public facilities and services element, to recognize recreational aspirations, to provide a range of public programs responsive to those aspirations, provide these services, to maintain facilities, to exemplify the higher standards for the community. One of the sound reducing options that we had also looked into quite a bit was what they call acoustic fencing. Ultimately, the staff did not recommend this, nor did ultimately the Forest and Beach Commission for a number of reasons. We did visit Pacific Grove. They have implemented that. We ultimately determined that regardless of what happens at this time, staff and then the Forest and Beach Commission did not recommend pursuing this particular avenue. We did look at hours and days, a restriction of hours and days, which ultimately there was a period of interim rules, which was intended to be for 90 days. That was set for 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. of allowable pickleball play, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. The very next month, however, we came back and addressed this. There was a number of complaints of noncompliance. We had discussed that there was not a meaningful level of punitive enforcement, right? Because what was proposed and the policy that was adopted in the end is not enforceable by law. We can't enforce something that is not as an ordinance, not in the municipal code. So to try to tackle this, we amended the interim plan. We locked up the nets, adjusted the hours so that they were within staffing hours, still kept it 3 days a week. Here's some of the good work that Jesse did on those signs on the left-hand side. Put them in 3 different places. Again, these are the same slides from several months ago, but just the bottom bullet point, between when we implemented these temporary rules to present, about an average of 3 calls to PD, to police department each month. They have received, I can't speak to whether that number is representative of the total amount of times that someone would have called. I'm sure the neighbors will likely speak to this, but they had indicated to staff on a number of occasions that ultimately they did not want to continue contacting the police department for something that they believed was not enforceable. But that's the data for the first 3 months, 17 calls in 3 months, and we had almost the same amount for the previous 3 or 4 months. We can jump right into the policy that was presented to the Forest and Beach Commission. This is the exact policy, but it's too difficult to read on the screen, so we took out the important information from this policy, and this is what it is. This is what we want to go over. This is what we are bringing to council to get your take on. This is what the Forest and Beach Commission ultimately adopted. Go through these on half of the Forest Hill Park courts. There would be installation of 2 permanent pickleball courts with fixed nets purchased and maintained by the city. On the other half of the courts, we would paint over the pickleball striping of 2 of the pickleball courts to leave only the tennis striping and designate that half as tennis use only, and install a fence roughly midway through the courts separating the 2 uses. This is kind of a mock-up of what that would look like. and then install automatic locks on the 2 gates. That's what Pacific Grove had done. They said that had worked well. The points that I had just covered in that policy that was adopted have not yet been implemented, because those things cost a total of $13,000. Before we had spent money on that, we wanted to bring this before council. In the Forest and Beach Commission's motion to adopt this policy, they had said to implement the policy as soon as practical. So we did implement part of the policy as soon as practical, which was limiting the days and hours. Pickleball, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. Tennis, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., 7 days a week. So the 2 things that we are looking from council are, here's just a kind of a summary of the fiscal impact. The 2 things we are looking for from council is regarding the policy, feedback on the policy, that's one thing. And then the second thing the policy that was adopted by the Forest and Beach Commission. And the second thing is the Forest and Beach Commission's recommendation to have an ordinance that would reference pickleball, times and tennis times and usage at Forest Hill Park. That's essentially the overview. Happy to open this up for questions. Whoops. Oh, that's okay. I'm only going to the slide that says questions. If the council wishes to see them, if you've ever heard pickleball being played, then that's what it is on the videos. Yes, sir. These were actually taken at Justin and I went out there and, we went to Pacific Grove and stood at a couple different points at the public property line on the opposite side of the street from them. And actually, Nova, I think you might need to click if you hover over it, there should be a little play button in the bottom left.
It's playing, but I'm having problems with the sound.
Nice try, though.
That's the sound of pickleball right there.
Yeah, it's, on my screen, it's showing that it's playing, but there's no sound.
Okay, it was simply to show what the sounds were like when there is an acoustic fence in between the players. And
Can you tell us what that sounded like?
Justin and I actually had 2 differing perspectives. Don't have any secrets here. He had indicated that he did believe it significantly reduced the pitch, which that's scientifically true. I had thought that you could very clearly still hear it, although the pitch was reduced. So we did have very differing perspectives. Would you like to speak to your?
Yeah, the decibels weren't, they were reduced, maybe not significantly, but the way the noise presented was very different. It dulled it, it brought down the pitch, and some people say it helps is enough, but it's a case-by-case basis. I would still think living across from that, you could clearly hear it. I wish we could show the videos. It really shows it. Then we took a video down where there was no fence, and you can tell just the character of the noise.
All right, Nova, maybe we can see why that's.
Daniel, are you able to help me with the sound on this presentation upstairs? Thanks.
Thank you, Justin. In the meantime, one thing that the sound engineer did say is that should acoustic fencing be installed at Forest Hill Park, that it would likely not help dampen the noise for the surrounding homes because of their elevation. Generally speaking, the line of sight is the line of sound. The fences do not reach a height that effectively blocks the sound from reaching the homes. So that was his input there. And actually what kind of killed this whole thing of even looking into them was, it turns out that after speaking with, Javier, Dwayne, several of our folks in-house, it's actually the weight of the fencing itself. Kind of just imagine a thick foam pad with no ability to have wind pass through. That's the whole purpose. You do not want to have open spaces where wind can pass through. And it's 1 pound per square foot. So one of the lengths is 100 feet. They're 12 feet tall. So 1,200 pounds would be put on the fences and put on there well with grommets, but ultimately that would trigger different structural, the footings would not be able to hold that weight at this time. That was just a whole matter that we had decided not to explore at this time.
So while we're waiting for this, I'm going to open it up for questions so
Yes,
that
sir.
we can ask you questions. But go ahead.
One add, Mr. Mayor, is that Chief Tomasi was concerned if we put those shrouds up, those acoustic shrouds, that would limit visual access. And so we could have our nefarious Carmel children doing things in there. But the police like to maintain visual access into public areas for obvious safety reasons. So again, something, if you'd like us to explore it, we could, maybe create voids in the acoustic fencing, but that just obviously lessens their impact.
Yeah, so in PG, how did they get around the structural aspects? Did they put up new, stronger fencing?
I do have a comment on that, but do you know the exact answer to Mayor Burns? I recall how they addressed it.
I don't recall. I think they just put it up and they talked about the weight. But the area that their fence is in is dense in a neighborhood. Ours is south facing, and if we get a 70-mile-an-hour wind, it's gonna go down.
So you think it's a problem?
It presents problems. And another reason too is talking with the city of Monterey. Have you guys been to Via Paraiso Park? It's very similar. The houses are in an elevated position that they didn't even try to explore the fencing because of the same reason.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Tom while we're trying to get that going?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just on that, Tom, I think what was interesting about the site visit was understanding that you're looking to relocate the pickleball to the east side of the court, which would, at least for the houses, to the west, would kind of decrease the angle of elevation to some extent. Do you have any sense of how high the fence would need to be to block line of sight?
Yeah,
Basing it with the pickleball courts on the east side?
Sure. We did look into that. It was adding an extra 10 feet, I believe it was. It might have been 12 feet. It was right around that ballpark. So the fencing would need to be added on the west. The height would need to be added to the fence on the west side and part of the north side of the fence, should that be looked into.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I have a couple of questions. Do you have any idea what the tennis usage of the courts is? So today there were a couple of women out there lobbing a tennis ball around, but are there ever situations where both tennis courts are in use, or do you have any idea how often that happens?
No, neither of us have seen both, and I'm sure it happens, but, we've been up there a few dozen times. I don't think I've seen both tennis courts being used. I've heard that it does happen, but not in a couple dozen times that we were up there.
Okay, can you go back a couple slides? Is that going to be possible here?
Yeah.
So on this diagram, the proposal is to drill the pickleball courts, correct me. The proposal is to drill the pickleball nets into the courts where, kind of where we see them.
Yes, to put them in permanently.
And so presumably the tennis net would be removed and this fence would be installed where that yellow line is. Why do we need the fence? Why do we need the fence to be installed? Is it that much of a problem with pickleballs going everywhere?
The fence is more for separation, and when the locks, the automatic locks are on two different timers. Because tennis would be allowed every day, and pickleball would be allowed certain days of the week.
Oh, okay. And if we, so when I look at this picture, and you install the fence is right up against the pickleball courts. So would the pickleball courts be shifted over to the east a little bit?
Yes,
So the pickleball courts would be moved to be in the middle of the 40 feet?
yes.
Okay. And you talked about, you know, we've heard some discussion here about the low noise fencing options. What about the low noise ball and paddle options?
Yeah, the pickleball community had, folks had come up to the podium during Forest and Beach Commissions and indicated that that was not an avenue that they were interested in exploring.
Put you on the spot. Do you know why? Like, do you remember like why?
I can speak
Is
to
the noise
everything that I've read
fun, or is it
online.
different,
The
or-
ball is intrinsically different, so it will hit different, spin different. They can speak to the degree to which there is a difference, but there is a difference.
Okay, those are my questions. Thanks.
Hans, do you have any other ones? Let's just go around. No?
I guess the only question I had was the 12 feet, you're saying 12 feet on top of the existing fence? I mean, that's obviously untenable, but when I'm out there and I'm looking at it, it doesn't look that way to me. I'm just curious. I don't know, just intuitively when I'm out there, it doesn't feel like it needs to be another 12 feet high, but like to what, are you trying to get to like their second floor window or?
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah, those are there's a two-story home right on in the city property on the west side that we had stood on the court, and I mean, the fence would need to be raised significantly. It's not a 2 or 3 foot
Got it.
increase.
Bob?
So the yellow fence, the fence shown in yellow, how tall is it going to be proposed to be?
We did not make a proposal on the height.
Okay. But I'll say this, you're basically proposing a complete segregation of uses. That the fence shown in yellow would be a solid fence. If you want to play pickleball, you've got to come in from the east, and that would have an electronic lock on it. If you want to play tennis, you have to come in from the west. That would have an electronic lock on it. And on the conversation about acoustic fencing, if you did it, I know you kind of dismissed it, so you may not be able to answer the question, but would you essentially just put it around the pickleball courts where you've segregated that? In which case, would you put it on the fence shown in yellow?
If we were to explore that, yes, and that's how Pacific Grove has it. They have it on I don't know the direction of their courts, but the corner of Gibson and Fountain, that wall, and then the wall that goes in between the two pickleball courts, that it's in the segregating fence.
Okay. As it comes out, I'll have a lot of questions about access and the electronic locks and kind of how much, how we can use, they can be pretty smart in terms of, they're not just yes or no. Sometimes you can basically give people codes. You can know who's using them. It's not necessarily just like having a key to open it. I mean, I think that's what we're thinking is by having the electronic locks, we, the city, don't have to go there and unlock something. We just press a button on a phone at or it's probably on a timer, right, at 10 a.m.
I believe it'd be on timer.
Yeah, and it's almost, so it's automatic. But if I think through access to a building, and this can be similar to access to a building, you can actually make it a lot smarter, is all I'm saying. And I think that's something we want to probe on today, is how can we use that device to know who's playing, to perhaps pre-allow who's playing, to perhaps reserve courts, et cetera. So I'm not sure we'll get the answers today, but that's, I may head down that path.
Okay.
Dale, can I ask a follow-up? I think to follow up on Bob's point, if I recall, because I was in Forest Beach when this first came up, you guys were talking about the fencing initially on the very west side, right, like the existing fence. And that's when it was sort of like, hey, it's got to add 12 feet to it and stuff. The geometry is such that if you put the acoustic barrier on that yellow fence, obviously you're much closer to sort of the narrow angle of the triangle. So my presumption is that that would need to be a much lower fence. And it's totally fine if the answer is no, but like the analysis that you did related to the existing fence, correct? Okay.
Yeah, you're spot on with what you're saying.
I have a follow-up too.
Can I? Sorry. Go.
I have a follow-up too.
Go ahead.
So when we talk about fencing and sound, you know, when you're in a big city, let's say you're in New York, and you walk down 45th Street from Fifth Avenue, you can still hear the noises on the upper part of Fifth Avenue. Like sound doesn't travel like light does. Like a fence, and I'm stuck on the amount of work that, you know, that we have done to determine that a higher fence is gonna make a difference or a significant difference in the amount of sound that gets from the court to the surrounding homes. Like, I'm really stuck on this. And it's one thing when we talk about like having a flashlight or a lantern on the court, sure. Like, that's like blinds in a house prevent the light from getting out. But an open door in a house allows sound from everywhere in the house to get around. And so did the commission think, or has staff thought about how this noise canceling fence or noise preventing fence may not stop all of the noise from the pickleball court getting into the surrounding neighborhoods? Like, they're completely different to me. Like, they're different kinds of waves.
They are entirely different. There are both waves, and you're spot on. Sound waves effectively spill over any barrier, and that is what would happen. The reason why we had tried to show the videos is because there is a barrier that is above our height, and we could very clearly hear it. So it does not at all reduce the sound to zero. It just doesn't. You can still hear it. The idea is that the degree of the pitch, because it's a very high frequency hit, the degree therefore has a very high pitch. The idea of these is that it decreases the pitch, and inevitably it does bring down the decibels, several decibels, up to 10 decibels. But the degree of annoyance of the sound that you will still hear, that is often a matter of subjectivity, actually. So even if we did install all of these, and let's say we measured it and we had hard scientific data saying, yes, we decreased the sound by X number of decibels, or whatever measure you're saying, the sound may still be to a level of annoyance of someone. So we just didn't think that this was, and especially considering its cost, we did not think that this was the route that we should go down.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
And the pitch was a specific note of specific residents, that it's not just the noise, it is the pitch that gets underneath their skin.
I do have another question.
Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, let's finish over here.
So I play pickleball, and I've played there. A phenomenon of pickleball is open play. You know, the fact that people will just go to a pickleball court without having a date, right? Or without having a foursome, they'll just show up. And that's quite common in the sport. That's kind of a feature of it. And I remember when all four courts were going, you know, that's 16 people playing. And then there were, at times, at least another 7, 8 people sitting on the bench waiting to come in. So, you know, that's sometimes over 20 people. And with tennis, that just doesn't happen. It's, you know, culturally, tennis is, you show up with your friend and play singles, or you show up with 3 friends and play doubles, and it's that you don't have that open aspect to it. Do we have any data at all on just the volume of cars and people at any specific times or over a period of time? Is it, my data point is probably 4 years old. I have not played there since then. Is that continuing to happen? What do we know?
Is the collecting of how many people are there still happening? Is the collecting of that data?
That's really where I'm trying to get, and I know we only have the data that we have, so I'm also putting this out there because we're gonna have a lot of public comment.
Sure.
And if the public would like to answer that question based on your experience when you come up and do some public comment, that might be helpful.
I think they will be able to speak to this a lot. There were 6 or 7 times that I took like exactly how many people, readings, cars, and that kind of thing. There were a couple of them. I had presented them in one of the charts. But yeah, on average, there were a couple people playing there. Several times there was one person playing with their automatic serving machine, I guess. On average, yeah, there was a couple of people there with a car or two. This is after they were reduced to two courts.
Okay.
So, but I'm sure the residents can speak to that. I would prefer to defer to them actually on that.
All right, your turn.
Thanks, Mayor. I have got a question for Acting Chief Traer, and I certainly do not mean to put you on the spot here because I know you've just taken over and Chief Tomasi might have this information. But do you have any updates on the number of calls from neighbors and the number of times that the police department has been sent out because of neighborhood disruptions and strife?
Yes, thank you. We ran it yesterday just for this meeting. Excuse my voice. It was 14 calls for service over the past, is it 2 years? Is that what we did it? So it's 14, I have to look, I'm sorry, but I do have it on my phone.
Since April 1st.
Since April 1st, I'm sorry, 2 months, not years. It's longer than 2 months, but it's only 14 because the call for service went down due to, I think, the community's response to it not being an ordinance.
Right, okay. So that was people calling in and also having to send officers out to just deal with neighbors and concerns about
Yes,
plight.
the officers went out a lot of the times, not always. We did make some of those beat information calls and told the community why, due to how many calls we're actually responding to at the time.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Anything else? Alessandra, anything else? No. All right. To follow up on that, what I'm hearing you say in terms of the calls is at some point, people just gave up calling. But we'll hear from the people when they come out. So, but thank you for that data. One thing that you didn't cover in your presentation, and Bob touched on it, is the parking and the congestion aspects. In my introduction, I mentioned that was the 2 things they were concerned about: the noise and the parking congestion, cars parked in the street, blocking traffic, and that sort of thing. Can you give us a report on that to any extent? Because you seem to have gone up there quite a bit and watched what was going on.
When there were 4 courts, there was a lot of issues with full parking. I mean, just look at the photo right on our screens. There's 5 cars parked there, and there was oftentimes 2 cars. Actually, in the bottom left of the screen, you can also see a car parked right by the west entrance. There's often a car parked. This is when the courts are full, right? Which happen fairly frequently, particularly on weekends. There would be, I think there's space for 2 vehicles on that western kind of driveway entry. But I think one of the big concerns that folks may speak to was also parking in undesignated spots. Someone that I had spoken to around there that has kids was very concerned about that. But most of the neighbors had mentioned that at some point, that when there were 4 courts, there was a lot of parking in undesignated spots, and it was very congested there. I don't have exact numbers, but I heard that like time and time again. It has significantly decreased since 2 courts.
As a reminder, council, Lorca Lane is entirely in the county. So the city property, the city limits don't begin until the southern edge of the pavement.
Okay, so, I mean, I would have to say that this is maybe a discussion item, but it'd be hard for me to say what the designated parking spots are. They're like most DeForest Theater. It's sort of haphazard, so we haven't done the best job we could on making designated parking there, to be fair to that subject. So I have a question. You mentioned that pickleball was approved by the Forest and Beach Commission in 2011. Can you give us any background? I know you weren't here and I wasn't paying attention. Can you tell us what happened from 2011 to 2021?
Yes.
And the neighbors can when they come up, if you
Certainly.
could.
Yes, sir. The motion that was approved was the approval of one pickleball court. Their wording was the approval of one pickleball court, and should there be, can't remember the word they used, increased popularity, then striping 2 courts. So they effectively approved up to 2 courts at that time in 2011. Perhaps partially as a result of the pandemic after 2020, the sport just blew up in popularity, right? Very fun sport, lots of people like it, and there were many requests to increase the number of courts. At that time, our former city forester, Sarah Davis, had made an effort to conduct a bit of research and reaching out to folks via the Friday letter, and I think there was a survey that was posted in the Nextdoor Neighbors app and the Weekly. She had tried to gather that data, and at that time, so we're talking 2021, that was when the Forest and Beach Commission had approved 2 additional courts. Did that cover what you were
Yeah,
asking?
I'm just wondering what happened in the 10 years. Were people playing pickleball? Were the neighbors complaining? It just seems like it's a vacuum. There's just no
Right.
data.
What I've heard time and time again is that the popularity of the sport was not at all what it currently is.
So there weren't enough people playing to cause the neighbors to be concerned.
I'm sorry, I can't recall,
They
actually.
can-
I
they
did
can
speak with them,
certainly
but
tell
I can't remember their answer on that.
And another question, during the pandemic, we were shutting down all the parks and everything, but pickleball was allowed to be played at Forest Hill Park during the pandemic? So it was shut down? Okay, so there wasn't any complaints during the somehow, okay. I'm a little confused about that, but I'll let it drop. Do we have the video yet? Should we just drop the video?
No, I think we're about to have it ready.
Okay,
but not
well,
quite.
if the video ever happens, we'll stop what we're doing and we'll play the video, because I think it was important when you showed it the first time, so it's probably important for the people that weren't at that meeting to see that. Any other questions from this side of things? Nope. All right. Thank you, Tom. Why don't you just stay at the ready, because I'm sure some questions might come out of the public comment. All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment. How many people plan on speaking, just so we can gauge this? All right, that's not so bad. All right, good. If you guys want to line up, I don't even know if it's necessary. You don't have that many. Just come up to the podium here, and I'll give you 3 minutes.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for holding this forum today. I originally presented to the Forest and Beach Commission a plan.
If you could give us your name,
Oh,
please.
I'm sorry, I did have that in there. I'm Susie Query, grew up in Carmel. The commission unanimously approved it, and our group, not the city, purchased the nets and literally painted the courts. After some time, a small group of folks started complaining about the noise and parking issues, and eventually threatened the city with lawsuits. I'm repeating a lot of what Tom said, but as a result, the Forest and Beach Commission implemented limits on the times and days of playing. Then at a subsequent meeting, the commission formulated a plan and sent it to the council about the 2 permanent courts, line and mill. Pacific Grove has had timed gates on their pickleball courts for several years, and it works very well. As a side note, our group may offer to help defray some of the cost to the city for these improvements. Although not ideal for us players, I respectfully request that the council approve the plan submitted by the Forest and Beach Commission. And on a personal note, my mother, Geraldine Smith, was on the city council in the 1950s, and they were still talking about house numbers. And if she were on the council today, I knew she would approve the plan as presented. And a couple of other things, if I can answer your questions. Never have we had people, if they come to play tennis, we always move off and let them play tennis. Very rarely, I've never seen 2 tennis courts being used. Since the implementation of the 2 courts, there's no parking issues. There's barely 4 of us that play, or maybe 8 sometimes. It's gone way down, and I think the usage has gone way down as well as parking.
And Susie, is it true that you're the national champion in pickleball?
I am indeed. Thank you for mentioning that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Who would have thought that we would have so much fun in this discussion?
I think,
Really appreciate you guys making the time, for this important meeting. It's been a long time coming, with us neighbors, asking to have some relief here. So I prepared a written statement, and I do recognize Susie as well. I saw the video where they voted in pickleball, and they admitted that it was going to disturb neighbors. And they said, but it's a lot of fun, so be it. So at that time, they admitted that it was going to really disturb neighbors. They immediately got, complaints, quote unquote complaints. Yet they feel that their enjoyment of this recreational sport is fine at our expense, our health expense. And that's what it's coming down to right now. So that's why we're here. I asked for this meeting to make this happen, and I appreciate you making the time. So on behalf of the Forest Hill neighbors, I urge you to amend the municipal code to prohibit pickleball in Forest Hill Park. These courts were built for tennis, a much quieter sport compatible with neighborhood setting with very close proximity to homes. Pickleball, however, generates excessive noise that carries into our homes. Despite the city's attempts at regulation, mitigations are not working. Nets are left up. Play occurs outside of permitted days and hours, and enforcement falls unfairly on residents and the police. This failed experiment has misappropriated city resources while escalating neighbor conflicts and unsafe parking on narrow roads. The current proposal in front of you by the Forest and Beach Commission, with extensive input by the pickleball group, is completely ignoring the scientifically established excessive noise that has been disturbing our neighborhood for way too long. Compounding this, the majority of the players do not live in Carmel-by-the-Sea and are not your constituents. They act like Forest Hill Park tennis courts is the only place they can play, although there are numerous other public and private pickleball venues that already exist. It is not the city's role to provide yet another pickleball venue with a location so close to homes. The burden borne by Forest Hill residents who endure hours of noise levels that exceed the municipal code is neither fair nor sustainable. Let me get the next page here. Let's see here. It says, by enacting an enforceable municipal code, the city can restore Forest Hill Park to its intended purpose, enhancing neighborhood life in a peaceful environment. Just as Carmel has acted to protect residents from air quality, from beach smoke, we ask that you now protect us from pickleball noise pollution. Scientific research continues to confirm that prolonged exposure to pickleball noise has measurable impacts on health and quality of life. And communities across the country are responding by prohibiting pickleball in residential areas. Carmel should not be left behind in addressing this very real modern problem. Residents' rights to homes free from pickleball noise are increasingly protected by courts and legislatures across the United States. We respectfully urge you to prioritize our residents' health in their homes and our environment and create a municipal code that will prohibit pickleball in the Forest Hill Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, my name is Lauren Hughes. I kind of support pickleball. A couple of small points here. If this process goes forward and we have automatic gates, it would seem unnecessary to have a 10 to 4 time frame when the original Forest and Beach Commission said 9 to 5. You can control that. There's no longer a staff resource which will require locks to be put on and off. You're also kind of restricting the tennis players from being able to have only, instead of 2 courts to play on, if they choose to, now they have 1, that limits that process. Pickleball players have 2 courts to play on, that could be in the case as well too. Earlier at the court, I'd mentioned the drain that comes down through that process. So if this is going to be separated, I don't know if any of you've been there, during the wintertime, that runs down that side of that, and there's a big line of water, which is really kind of a safety issue. So hopefully that could be addressed in that area. Also, I think I heard just for the first time today from Tom that they were thinking about taking the tennis court out of the pickleball side. That really makes that, balls bounce back and forth. Every other place that I've been, Chamisal has some, they leave the court in, so when a ball's popping through that process, it'll stop there and not go to the next court. So I think it makes sense to do something that's gonna satisfy both parties, even though we do have a very small, very vocal minority who is impacting the public use of that court. But if that's the case, let's try to make that so it's gonna work for everybody. Timing should be 9 to 5. Why we're taking 3 days instead of 3.5? Why we're reducing the pickleball so much more than the tennis? It's a choice that the council is ultimately gonna make in that process. So those would be my thoughts on that issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Didier Diaz, and I live on Vista. To answer your question, the issue for me really started in 2023, January. I bought my house in 2017, started living there full-time 2020. 2023, January is when really it was nonstop. So unless an effective noise mitigation measure is identified, pickleball should not be allowed at Forest Hill Park. And that ban needs to be enforceable. This is not a Carmel-only issue, as you know by now, but it's made worse at Forest Hill Park because of the proximity of the court, and as we've talked about, the spatial topography around it. On top of that, this is Carmel-by-the-Sea, where supposedly peace and quiet are so critical that a very expensive electric sweeper was purchased and gas-powered weed whackers were forbidden. So we look at this and say, how can you, let us endure 3 days a week the noise of pickleball? So that's one point I wanted to make. As John mentioned, another thing that's difficult for us to accept is that the majority of the people who play at the court are not from Carmel. Carmel is about 3,000 people. If you combine Pacific Grove, Seaside, and Monterey, you get about 75,000. So do the math, it's about, Carmel represents 4%. So you can expect that 9 out of 10 people do not live here. It's difficult for us to think that our tax dollars are used to help people come break the peace and quiet in our space. The last thing that I want to mention is I understand the position. We're asking you essentially to take away the toy. But if you go back to 2021, when the toy was given, when those 4 courts was painted, 2, if not 3, out of the 4 members were pickleball players. That, to me, represents a pretty obvious conflict of interest. So I think this should be looked at as if pickleball were not allowed today, and you were asked, based on everything you know about the issues with pickleball everywhere in the country, should pickleball be allowed in Carmel-by-the-Sea? Thank you.
Before you leave, could you, one of the things I asked about was what was happening 2011 to 2021, where we didn't hear much. You bought your house in 2017.
Yeah.
What was happening at that point?
So then there was hardly any use of the course.
So they were playing, it was noisy, but not enough to bother you?
No, it never came, hardly anybody was playing.
Okay.
And 2023 is when what Councilmember Daves talked about, we started seeing pickup games where people would just come and wait, and so it was nonstop.
So it's just the volume of people playing that became the issue?
Yeah.
It was still, you could hear it before, but just not enough to be a problem?
Really, it was not even registered.
Okay. All right, that was my question, thank you. Barbara?
Did you want me to play the video now, or wait?
Why don't you wait till we get done with this?
Hello, my name is Barbara Lang, and thank you for having this meeting. I spoke to a couple of you guys. And I guess the first thing I want to stress is it's a public park. And that means it's a park where it's for recreation. Just like our beach, we have a dog beach, and we have a lot of tourists that go to the dog beach and love the dog beach. Well, we have tourists that come to Carmel, and they want to play pickleball. And even the hotels are giving the equipment to play pickleball. And some of those people, I wanted to ask Todd, if some of those people that they're calling on are the tourists. Because I can tell you, I'm a local, And I live a half a mile from the courts, and I walk my dog there all the time. And since you've gone to 2 courts, I would say there's maybe 4 to 8 people total. And every time I walk by there on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Parking is not a problem anymore. I want you to stress, think about now, not when it was 4 courts anymore. They keep bringing up 4 courts with parking and all that. That is not the issue now. We're talking about 2 courts. Parking is not an issue. No one is blocking the streets. Doesn't look pretty, I agree, but parking in Carmel doesn't look pretty anyway. I mean, I don't even want to walk. I mean, I don't drive down here. I walk because I don't like the way, it's so tight in the streets of Carmel. But I want to talk about the hours too. When they put it up for the beach and forest, they're 9 to 5. And they said, we're going to do that for 3 months. We did it for 1 month, and they stopped it. The month they did it was December, when it was the holiday. And we had all these tourists here, and they shut it down. And that's not very fair. They didn't even give us a really good trial, which it should have been 3 months, not 1 month, because of tourists. So I personally feel that 10 to 4 is not a good amount of time, especially in the summer, when you have all this daylight. It should be 9 to 5, 2 courts, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the locking, because then you wouldn't have the staff issue. But it is a public park, so remember that. It doesn't, and pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. It's going to be here. It's not going away. And I think Carmel should embrace it like so many other parks. There's articles saying that tons of tennis courts are being transformed into pickleball. Lots of clubs. But as far as public, there aren't a lot of public here. There's Pacific Grove, and there's Via Prizzo and Carmel. That's it. Oh, and Wheeler. They don't even have bathrooms there. At least you have bathrooms in Carmel. But in Via Prizzo, they went through a whole process, and they determined that they would have 2 courts every day of the week, no hours. So why don't we do that? If it's okay for Via Prizzo, which is very similar setting as Carmel, why aren't we doing that? So I just want you to look at the facts. 2 courts are fine. The hours really should change. As far as the equipment, the quiet balls and the paddles, you're asking like tennis players to play with a ping pong ball. You're changing the sport. So I play in tournaments. I'm a national player also. I don't want to play with a quiet paddle. It changes the whole game. So I don't think that's fair to ask people to play with equipment that isn't what the sport is made of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you for holding this meeting today. My name is Kimberly Edwards.
She's going to be speaking for my time, too.
My name is Kimberly Edwards. So I live on the southwest corner of Unipro and Vista. So I'm kitty corner from the courts. I can see them, I can hear them. And one thing I want to bring up right out of the gate is that I'm not here to dismiss the merits of pickleball and that it's fun and that it's healthy and that it's great. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because this venue was never intended for pickleball. It was tennis. Completely different sport. I know you've heard this. It is not appropriate in this venue with this compact residential neighborhood. It's been shown over and over again across California and the United States that this is a problem when you're in a compact residential neighborhood. The person that was just speaking, great, it's fun, but they don't live by the courts. They don't hear the noise that I hear from inside my house. In fact, as I was writing my letter to you, which I don't know, I know Dale read it because he responded, I could hear the noise from inside my house, and the windows weren't even open, and I was trying to focus, and I said, this is laughable because I'm trying to write a letter to the city council, and I can't focus on my letter because of this, okay? And yes, there's been less of an issue with parking since you narrowed it down to 2 courts. But what happens is that people will use the tennis court side as well to play pickleball. Like, this is something you need to think about. Even if you do the locks, the pickleball players, I've seen them use the tennis court side and use that net. I mean, this is not as simple as just what we're proposing. I feel like it's not appropriate. It needs to be in a different venue. I mean, if you live there, you'd understand. If you don't live there and you like to play, it's fun. But the fun is at an expense to the residents. Even if there's a dozen of us or 20 of us, the few, the many shouldn't outweigh the few. It is, you know, I think that, I feel like Forest and Beach Commission has lost their way. You're supposed to be protecting the residents that have a problem with this. That is your foremost and number one duty, to protect us. Everybody can't be here to speak today. I know I sent a letter, multiple neighbors sent a letter. I didn't see those posted on your site, but I hope that you read them because, you know, it really breaks my heart. I've been in this house since 2012, so I can answer to the fact that, yes, I even played tennis. I never saw pickleball players playing until after the pandemic, after 2021. It wasn't an issue before that. So this is what, it's just escalated. So, and I have personally called the police many times, had long conversations with the police officer, and he explained to me, this cannot be enforced. So I just want to say, the Forest and Beach Commission looked at us and said, we can enforce this. Why did they think they could enforce this? They don't either know what their job is, they don't understand the details. So, you know, it's not enforceable, and it's been so frustrating to us neighbors, you know, so.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would just like to say the same.
Come up to the mic, please.
I'd like to say the same. I live with Kimberly.
Give us your name. Give us your name.
Monty.
Okay.
And it is noisy, and the parking is in effect. They park in front of our house, and you know, that's all I can really say is it shouldn't be here. If you know, they should go play at a designated pickleball spot. We should make them one. It's not a park; it's a tennis court, and that's about really all I have to say.
I mean, it was never created for pickleball. Who could have foreseen this? None of us could have foreseen this, but now we're dealing with this.
All right, thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Jane Veneman, and I am a resident of Carmel-by-the-Sea, and I'm an advocate of the pickleball. And there was a comment made earlier about the health of the residents around them, that we need to stop pickleball because of the health. Well, we need to keep health. We need to keep our health physically and mentally, and pickleball helps with that, to me, tremendously. So I just want to make sure you take in the health of both sides. I have several friends that have written letters. They've asked that I read them today. I know I don't have time to do that, but I am hoping that you are reading all of the letters. I assume you do. When I send you letters, I usually get a response, at least back from one or two of you. Also, just today, speaking of compliance, did anyone speak to the tennis players that were playing before 10 o'clock this morning? Just a thought, you know, they were not supposed to be out there playing. So were they asked to stop? I didn't see anything happen with that. Every time I play out there, I hear the noise of the gas blowers because, of course, Lorca Lane is not part of Carmel-by-the-Sea, as you mentioned, so they can have the gas blowers. And you were talking about the trees today. I think it's great that they cleaned out the trees. They did them on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons when we play, but that's over now. I'm also a little bit concerned about the middle fence. I know that there was nothing put in. I was at those other meetings. I think the middle fence would have to be high enough so that our pickleball players and their tennis ball players didn't go across, because otherwise you'd have to walk around and open the other gate. I don't know if there's going to be a gate. One person today mentioned taking away the toy. I'm thinking you're taking away our right. I live about a block and a half from the Carmel Police Department and the Carmel Youth Center. Nothing makes me happier to hear sirens that are protecting our city or to hear the laughter of children. Sometimes I can hear it inside the house. I couldn't hear a better, sound. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, council members, thank you for holding this meeting today. I am a pickleball player. I have not played at the park since the policy was changed. I think a community has been decimated. And you may think, okay, the community will find itself elsewhere, but part of the people who no longer assemble are people who can't afford to play at private clubs. You know, you're really impacting retirees. And by the way, the disturbances, yeah, there's laughter, there's joy. My gosh, what a terrible thing to have happen. But the people who are causing disturbances they're not hooligans. There are lawyers, nurses, teachers. That's what this community is made of. Really fine people. And to bring them together is actually, I think, supports your statement as a community to have vitality. One of the people who cannot play there anymore is actually someone who works for the county. He lives a block and a half away, and he's unable to play because the hours are restrictive. They're his work hours. So I would ask you to consider having work hours, because there will be locks, to have them be unlocked at hours where people who work can play, because that's, again, part of what's been decimated in the process. I do support your plan. I love that you're looking for a compromise. I think we do need to come to a compromise. I've been playing pickleball for a long time, and it's been an absolute joy. I've seen people who've been widowed, who would be incredibly sad and disconnected were it not for this sport. This sport has brought them back in and has given life to them. So, some of this is not measurable, some of it is. I hope that you'll consider all this in the balance. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tamara Bennett. I wasn't planning on speaking today. I'm one of the not constituent out-of-town tourists that are happily using the pickleball courts throughout the Monterey Bay area. I have not used the Carmel ones. I've attempted to. And this is what tourists are told in general on pickleball websites and Facebook and whatnot. It's a very hostile area. It's the one hostile area of Carmel-by-the-Sea is the pickleball courts. So I come down here, I eat a lot of food and spend money in your stores and do everything else, but don't use the courts. And that's other people that come to visit when we share where to play. People that come and play pickleball also eat food and do other things where they appreciate the area. The congested parking thing, I kind of giggled because, I don't know, have any of you seen Clint Eastwood in Play Misty for Me? Carmel's had a reputation for there's nowhere to park as 1971. Nothing has really changed in terms of parking. It's just maybe moved around where the congestion is, but I don't know, to me it's everywhere. So that sort of seems like a moot point for the locals that comes with being in this area. One of the persons mentioned that the locals mentioned that you were exceeding the municipal code for sound, and I was curious if that gentleman had some sort of measuring device that he would share with the city to be making that statement. Otherwise, I don't think that's really been determined here. Anyway, I hope you guys extend the hours as mentioned. I hope you keep it going here. I hope I get to come play here. And it is good for people. The socialization points that were pointed out is just like if you had a group that met at the park and maybe did their book club too loud, and the laughing, the giggling, and everything else. Anyway, I think it's important to the community, and I hope you keep it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sanjay. I'm a local community member and a hotelier in this town. Thank you for having this. And I wanted to share my perspective as a local hotelier and a community member regarding the value of the pickleball courts to Carmel. Our hotel welcomes guests from all over the world. And time and again, they express how much they enjoy being able to play at the nearby pickleball courts. The proximity has not only enhanced the experience, but has also been one of the key reasons for many of them to choose to return to Carmel for future visits. It's a unique amenity that contributes directly to the vibrancy of the local hospitality economy and supports the repeated business for a small business like mine. Beyond the benefits to tourism, These pickleball courts play an equally important role in the life of our community. The game has been a wonderful source of good health, active living, and social connection. It is a sport that brings together people of all ages and abilities, fostering inclusiveness, and strengthens the bonds of the residents and the visitors alike. In short, the courts are far more than a recreational facility. They are a gathering place that promotes wellness, inclusivity, and economic vitality to Carmel. Preserving and supporting them is an investment not only in the health of the residents, but in the continued appeal of the town as a welcoming destination. I respectfully urge the council to recognize that importance and continue supporting the courts as a priority in maintaining Carmel's reputation as a thriving, welcoming, and a health-conscious community. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your thoughtful consideration. Now, coming back to that point about tennis courts and people walking over, I can tell you that recently we've been on the courts and exactly the time which you've allowed us to play, there are hardly 4 or 6 of us playing or 8, but people have come up and threatened us on that courts. We never reported it to the police. Maybe we should have. Maybe we would have got 17 numbers out there by then also. So I just want to let you know, it's not just the residents thinking they can complain to the police for whatever reason, but we as players have been threatened on that court on times which we are allowed legally to play and be on that court. That's totally unacceptable, I thought. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name's Nicole Jacoby. I live in Carmel, not near the course, but I am a pickleball player. And first, I just wanted to say I do appreciate the city's efforts to trying to find balance. I mean, I think it's a public park, and everybody's perspective should be appreciated. But again, I think it's about balance. And I'm worried that the city and neighbors are wishing to reduce pickleball play further or even eliminate it. I think, we have to be careful what we wish for. Next thing, it could be your pastime or sport. It could be your kid's football game. It could be your band's practice session. It could, races at Laguna Seca, the air show, the county fair, the jazz festival, the Sunset Center concerts, the Forest Theater, maybe even laughter of children playing at the local school ground will become intolerable. All those things could be eliminated if enough people complain. And I also want to say that for me, pickleball is very important. When I moved here, I feel like I really need it. Once I retired, it's one of the ways I find my friends, and the social aspect is probably even more important than the physical aspect. I can stay at home and lift weights and squats and do all that, but when I go to play pickleball, I meet people. Most of my friends I've met from pickleball. It's so important to me. I don't know what I would do if it were eliminated. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. How many more people plan on speaking at this point? So we're down to one more. Two more.
Good
Okay.
morning.
All right, good.
My name is Michael Kennedy, and I'm a pickleball player, tennis player, and pickleball ambassador for Monterey County. That's a highly paid, unpaid volunteer to help promote pickleball. I've spoken before to the council, and I appreciate you having these meetings, particularly this special meeting on pickleball. Just a few things. I did submit a statement about softball that hopefully you have read. I'll comment a little bit on here briefly, but first of all, I think the recommendation that the FBC made on March 13th is sound and is a good compromise between what used to be pickleball here and what is now. I think that's a sound compromise. I also am working with other cities such as City Modesto and their pickleball, Central Valley Pickleball Club, which I'm a part of. And I admire the relationship, the working relationship between the city, the pickleball players, and the neighbors, that they enable to work out a good compromise there. If you choose to follow the recommendations for March 13th, there's two things I recommend. First of all, don't put the 60-40 line at 60-40, put it 50-50, because think about the future. If there are changes that need to be made in those courts, then you've got a lopsided court. You can't even play tennis on that side, on the other side. And 60-40 would be fine with pickleball players, but I think you need to think about the future. That fence is fine just in the middle. Also, if you choose to keep the recommendations of the March 13th council, keep that tennis net that's there now on the pickleball side. Why? If you're a pickleball player, you would know why. Because you're playing and there's another court behind you, that ball's gonna go into that court so often, that present net there will just keep those balls from coming in. No need to take it down. If you choose not to do the option and to either have no pickleball, then I think there's one more compromise that needs to be done, and that is to use a softball. This is a librarian ball. It's a very common ball that's commonly used in areas where there's only soft pickleball, and it would completely reduce the noise level to almost nothing, and it would eliminate the need even for the Forest and Beach Commission or this council to deal with it, because it would completely eliminate the noise issue. That was an option that was proposed several months ago, maybe 6 months ago, but it was never tried. And so it would eliminate any need for cost of building a fence or anything else that needs to be done. This is one option that is the final option, needs to be tried if you choose not to allow pickleball. This is a good option. Just like when you're playing in Foursquare as a kid, and some kid brings in a new ball, there might be a little resistance at the beginning, but after a while, everybody forgets about that because either you like pickleball or you don't. Okay?
Thank you.
So, thank you very much.
Are you gonna stick around?
What's that?
Are you gonna stay around? You're not
Yeah, I
gonna
will.
leave right now?
I will.
I have some questions for you, but we'll finish the comments first.
I'm Nancy Hubby, and I'm a pickleball people, and I just want to thank you all. I mean, this is pretty neat for the city of Carmel to spend the time, the energy, the money, all of you, the police department, the public works department. I thank you. I think you're being fair. I think you're doing research. I think this is a wonderful thing. I was born in Carmel 72 years ago. My family's been in Carmel for 100 years. I live in Carmel, I play pickleball here, and I really appreciate your time, your effort, listening to all of us and your research. Please let me keep playing. Thanks.
Thank you. And one more. Four people on Zoom, all right. We don't see Zoom up here anymore, do we? Here, you have to look up there.
See it up there?
Could I make a note, Nova? Are we ever gonna see the timer on our screens here? Just side note, I'll get you afterwards. We can't see your time, we have to look up here to see it. So.
Okay. Hi, my name is Peter Cole. I've had a house up here for 7 years, and I've purposely stayed out of these halls because I'm deeply involved in local politics down in Studio City, where I've fought. I'm a sound mixer, by the way, and I have a lot of knowledge about sound. So I've stayed out of this place because I'm deeply involved in 2 projects down there. One was a 100,000 square foot mall that was built across the way from me, where I was attacked by a developer's lawyers illegally. And then there's a quarter mile from there, there was a 16-acre golf course that was taken over by a large school that's building a world-class sports complex that, quote, won't disturb the neighbors. So 2 things that brought me here today. The first thing you might find funny is I want to help you with a little sound problem with these meetings. There's a small technical problem with the broadcast that can be fixed easily. The other thing is, I don't have a game. I don't have an opinion one way or other on the pickleball, but I do have a lot of knowledge in sound, and I do have a lot of knowledge in decoding all the technical information from various entities when they do sound reports. So if you need any help, looking at it from a practical way and explaining how sound travels versus what's written on paper, I'm happy to help. So I'd like to talk with you further about that later.
Send an email to Nova, City Clerk, at
okay, will do.
cbts.us.
All right, thank you.
We'll put you on the list. Thank you. Appreciate your volunteering option. Yep, okay. We just got a newcomer.
Yeah, I can.
Come on up.
Hi, my name is Amina Sanu. I've been playing pickleball about 5 years, and I play tennis more than that, right? I came here because I feel like this is a court that I met so many friends I've never met before through any other sports. And it connected all the generations, and from the young teenagers till 80 and past more, and then they're great people. And I was sad, that's why I use my wellness hour from I work at the Defense Language Institute. So this is a kind of not only for people's wellness, and it is sad to see that it was going down and then dying in the court. I talked to the friends and then good people are not coming anymore. And I said, why is that? Good people is leaving. I cannot see even the players during the limited time. It is, I hope Carmel value the people's meeting place and socializing and kind of like try to find a remedy instead of try to kill the sport itself from this beautiful course. So I didn't prepare anything officially, but I hope you feel that is, I understand that is kind of a noisy issue, then try to fix that issue and then keep the remedy, the site instead of just kill away our joyful place. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thanks for taking time off work to come talk to us. All right, I think we're done in the chambers. We want to start calling the Zoom?
Jean Rash, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Jean Rash from Monterey, and this is all very familiar. I was centrally involved in curing the problem at Via Paraiso Park. We had gone to, we had 2 tennis courts, and there were times a few years ago when those were available entirely to pickleball, and it was a problem like you have experienced. We eventually ended up at the Mandel Gisnet Center for Conflict Resolution. It got so bad. One difference between Forest Hill and Via Paraiso is Forest Hill is quieter than Via Paraiso. Via Paraiso has Via Gayuba, which is kind of like Junipero, and we have Herman, which traverses the whole neighborhood. So they aren't like Lorca and Vista. Yours is much, much quieter, and I stopped by the other night, and you could hear a pin drop. No one was at either court. It was the end of Labor Day. So our goals always were to involve the staff as less as possible, involve the PD as least as possible, to not store anything, but also to have the facility available in what I called a drop-in basis, so that the community could use it without reservations on a drop-in basis. And as I look at what you're going through, I'm wondering if there's another option where there's one tennis court permanently striped for tennis, permanently netted for tennis, and then rather than 2, which some people aren't going to like, 2 pickleball courts, go down to 1 pickleball court aimed in the same direction as the tennis court, permanently netted, permanently striped. And we decided we didn't need the divider net, and we also thought it might be more dangerous. And then open it up to drop-in use, not have hours. Have people be able to play when they were available to play, and less restrictions. The advantage then is that you only have 4 people on pickleball playing at any time, but they can come when it's available. Having it 1 court does reduce all that conviviality that's part of the beautiful part of pickleball, but it keeps it manageable for the neighbors. And I wonder if that's my contribution. I would think about that. 1 pickleball court, 1 tennis court, permanently netted. You aren't going to be able to enforce the quiet equipment rules, As people have noted, you can't enforce people dropping in a little early or a little late. And you would then be welcoming pickleball and welcoming tennis, but at a minimal level, really aimed at your population and those traveling who hear about it and drop in. Thank you.
Jean. Jean, is that something that you tried at your park in Monterey? I don't know if he's still there.
We never went down to one. We went down to 2 courts.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And no one was perfectly happy. The pickleball lovers wanted their 4 courts back at some time, and the tennis people wanted 2 tennis courts.
Thanks, Jean. Thanks for taking the time to give us your thoughts.
Anthony Carnazzo? Anthony, you can unmute yourself.
Good morning, all. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. First I just want to acknowledge what an awesome town. Just what a great town that with an issue that is difficult and passionate on both sides, that the good folks down there at City Hall are taking this so seriously and are doing so without any sense of bias, and they're patient and gracious and hearing everybody's voice and acknowledging it such and reviewing everything with such depth, and I think in general handling the issue with such grace. So I just want to point that out and express my gratitude as something of a silver lining during this difficult conversation. A lot of gratitude to everybody down there at City Hall. Thank you. My issues, a lot of people talk about noise. My issues are more about safety. But before we get to the noise, I actually just walked over. I want to make a point of being home right now. And there are 2 games of tennis going on right now. And I can't even hear them. Got the door wide open. Can't even hear the tennis. But both courts are being used on Wednesday. Reason why I point that out is because some of the other residents who live a little further afield by their own admission have mentioned that they don't think there's people that play tennis, and they've said that when they come by, there's not that many pickle people about, and parking seems to be of no issue. I respectfully disagree. If you live close to the tennis courts, as I do, that's just not the case. But anyways, switching back on to safety. The first issue is parking. People park all over Hill and Dale, and what ends up happening is it creates kind of like narrow alleys on an already small street, so that cars can't pass safely. That's even ended up in some verbal altercations between people, frustrated at the moment. People often play outside of the assigned times since those guidelines were put in place. People play over tennis nets. On a couple of occasions, I've asked people to be like, hey, can you just observe the sign right here? And they laugh at me and keep on playing. We stopped calling the police because I remember months ago in the meeting, people were like, well, then make a report to the police. We did so. Obviously, they can't really enforce anything. They can just advise. And so it continued. And we were just embarrassed to call and pull the police force away from much more important issues than pickleball. But we assure you that people are still violating the guidelines set forth. I appreciate the extended discussion about noise abatement efforts. I don't think they'll help much, not least of which because all of the houses are at an elevated level, so the sound will still reach the homes. And one thing that folks I don't think pointed out yet today, it's in a valley. So the topography is quite unique in that everything echoes anyways, and all the more so with something as loud as pickleball.
Anthony, your time is up. If you want to summarize one more point, go ahead. All right. Thank you, Anthony. John Kretschmer, you're up.
Hi, this is John Kretschmer. I'm a Carmel-by-the-Sea resident, and I live directly across the street from the Forest Hill Park courts, and I am speaking on behalf of our neighborhood coalition of 45 residents. I would just ask the council members to sit back and relax, close your eyes, and envision you're sitting in the comforts of your home in your comfortable chair with all of your windows and doors closed. You're reading your favorite book. Turn the page and enjoy. Pop, 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 pop. Yes! Pop, 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 pop. Bam! Pop, 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 pop. Scream! Pop, 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 pop. Yes! Pop, 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 pop. Bam! Pop, 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 pop. Scream! Pop, 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 pop. Yes! Pop, 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 pop. Damn! Pop, pop, pop.
I think you got it, John.
Pop. Scream! That was only 1 minute. So just imagine listening to that for 6 hours. And that was only one game of pickleball. Imagine the multiple games. It's pretty miserable, but that's the reality of what we're dealing with when we sit in our homes and try to relax. So the only question I would pose to the council is, can you honestly state that you would like to live across the street from these courts? If the answer is no, I think you know the right thing to do. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, John.
Owen Bayless, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Burns and City Council. I am fourth-generation Carmel resident. One of the reasons I purchased this home is I'm about 3.5 blocks from the courts. I played on the courts with my mom. I have chosen to spend Father's Day on the courts playing tennis. I think the courts are something of a treasure for Carmel. There are only 2 courts built for tennis with Carmel stone around them, and they're accessible. So I have something of a sentimental attachment to the tennis. What is the council being asked here is kind of to consider a change in use and extent of use of the facilities for something different than tennis. And that impacts a lot of people. It impacts people that can't afford to join some of these other more expensive clubs or places where we can play tennis. And I'm one of them. I don't belong to any of the other clubs. I like playing tennis down there. I understand the passion that people have for pickleball. And I know it's a sport that's gaining popularity recently. I analogize it maybe to a public park where people have been using the park for years. There have been kids down there, kids' noises of playing, maybe a ball bouncing, people shouting. And there's a decision to maybe change that to allow it to be exclusively a dog park, or to have part of it cordoned off as a dog park. It increases noise, it increases people coming there with dogs, possible altercations, so forth. And I think it's really an opportunity here. If this sport is as popular as it is, and people are coming and staying in hotels and need a pickleball court, I think we might consider a designated location that doesn't affect the neighbors as profoundly as this does. I think that it's obviously a popular sport that the city could accommodate somewhere else. But for those of us that only have the option maybe to play, we no longer can play at the high school. I've seen the torn up the courts there. I don't know if they're going to replace them with new courts. But it's really great to be able to just go down there and play tennis. So if this measure gets approved, I would ask that maybe on the tennis court side, we allow the hours to be much more flexible, particularly in the evening, because people have been playing tennis there for, decades with no major complaints.
Thank you,
And
Owen. Thank you, Owen. Great points. We have Jean, I think our last online speaker.
Okay, good morning, Mayor, City Council. Thank you very much for addressing this issue. I'm a 23-year full-time tax-paying resident, third-generation Carmelite. I'm a tennis player and a pickleball player. I'm just curious why an alternate location hasn't been scouted out to build pickleball courts, a dedicated pickleball courts. For instance, at the mouth of the valley where the noise might not be such an issue. I just wanted to give a little anecdote. I was at the Forest Hill tennis courts on a Friday waiting for my tennis partner when 4 guys were playing pickleball with the tennis net. And I was watching, and when a neighbor came out to alert them to the days that were allowed, as that was not one of them, they left. 2 children came to play tennis, and I played on the other court. So both courts were being used. It seems to me that allowing one designated pickleball court would be acceptable, as the woman from Monterey, Jean, stated. As I said, I do enjoy playing pickleball, and I understand the noise and energy level, that it's very different from tennis. So, in other words, having 2 pickleball courts adjacent to the tennis court is too much activity in proximity to a single tennis court. So you're talking about 8 people to 4, because you'd only have 4 on the tennis court. It's just too much, too many balls flying in the air and too much energy. And the balls do stray. You definitely need a fence in between the courts. I sympathize with the residents. I rented a house around the corner at one time years ago before pickleball took over. I did play tennis there with my daughter, and I still go there occasionally. It seems to me it's almost akin to putting a skateboard ramp on one of the tennis courts. So I would be serious in your consideration and find another location, because it is a fun sport, and it would be a shame to see it leave Carmel. Thanks.
Thank you. Last call for speakers online, in the chambers. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and for being very civil. It was actually really good, so I appreciate that, and as do the council people. So we're going to bring it back now for discussion. We're going to take a break at noon, right? Or is that the convenient break time?
Yeah,
after we do the videos here.
Yeah, my suggestion, Mr. Mayor, is to do the videos, ask any questions you might have of any of the speakers. Turn to Councilmember Dramoff, myself, or yourself to talk about the middle school courts that are being coordinated through one of our residents, Graham Robertson, and the superintendent. And then we take a break before we get into discussion. That's my suggestion.
All right, Nova, why don't we start out by showing the videos? Are you ready?
Videos again, this is how it works when you record a scene.
I just clicked on the.
What was it, ADJOURNMENT.
Can I play media? Fortunately.
All right.
It plays on our desktops.
Do you have it on your phone or anything? I think it must be the.
Is that one?
Perhaps during the break, we could try.
Okay.
Okay.
But
After the break.
We'll practice during the break. Thank you. We'll keep going until we get it right. So Chip, do you want to take on, we've got a comment about some,
Yeah.
we've been working on trying to find other locations. I'm just going to throw that out there so it's it's on the record for us to discuss.
Absolutely. Councilmember Dramoff and I and Mr. Wysocki and Graham Robertson met at the Carmel Middle School. So one of the last speakers, Mr. Bayless, Owen Bayless, talked about playing at the high school courts. Those are being converted to parking spaces because that was part of the mitigation measure so they could use their stadium lights at night. So those courts are being moved down to the middle school, and Councilmember Dramoff and I again met with some folks down there about expanding the number of courts, the tennis courts, and then converting some of the tennis courts to pickleball courts. Please correct me when I'm wrong, ma'am. And then, pickleball play would be permitted on weekends, and then pickleball play and tennis play by members of the public would be permitted after school was let out. So nobody could play during school
What about
hours.
summer? What about the summer?
And during the summer, sir, correct, and breaks,
So
yeah.
anytime
Basically,
during the summer.
yeah, whenever school's not in session.
Okay.
And so again, that's kind of a work in progress, and that might provide some relief for our courts in the village itself. What did I miss, ma'am?
I think you covered it pretty well. I think the key to that is that it would be free, and that certainly is a concern, that you don't want people to have to pay for a club membership, which can certainly be expensive. It's close by. Somebody else who mentioned in the comments that it's at the mouth of the valley, and you don't have any immediate neighbors, and it's just large open space. So we're really looking into hoping that that can be a possibility. It's still in the works. There's a lot more that needs to be done. Certainly, there's bureaucracy with the school and superintendent. We need everything worked out. But we're, crossing our fingers that that could be a hopeful solution for a close-by place that people could play and would be free.
Just one more note, Mr. Mayor. If you write to the city council through the city clerk, I can assure you that your letters and correspondence are immediately sent to council, and then they're bound, and we get paper copies up here at the dais. In fact, just this morning, we got a phone call, I got a voicemail from a resident that I forwarded on to city council. So we really try to do our best to ensure that any written or verbal correspondence that doesn't come in through this kind of a mechanism is transmitted to the council for their consideration.
I might add, in terms of the middle school opportunity, is there's parking. So
Yes, sir.
none of the parking issues would happen out there.
So are there courts there now, or would this be all?
They're just tennis courts there now, so they would have to convert some of the tennis courts, but because of the loss of tennis courts at the high school on Highway 1, they're building more courts at the middle school.
So how many courts are there?
I believe it was 4.
So there's 4 now, and they're
Four
gonna,
now.
do we know
I
how
think
many?
they're doing 2 more, was my recollection.
And is that funded, approved?
No, it's just in concept at this point.
But it's a serious concept.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we're taking this seriously. I wasn't able to go out to the meeting, and thank you, Alessandra, for getting out there, but Graham Robertson is doing a lot of on-the-ground research on this. I think he left, but thank you to Graham for getting this started. And we're having discussions with the school district about some other things that we're doing. So I think the relationship's pretty strong, and we're going to push it forward. No promises right now, though. All right. Do you want to break now, or do you want to start the discussion?
My suggestion is to take a break before we start the discussion, so you don't have to truncate it somewhere in the middle, unless there are
I
questions
agree.
of members of the public that council may
Are there
have.
any last questions before we break for lunch? I know you had your hand up in the audience.
I did, but it was a question on were the courts built or not. You just
Yeah,
answered that
yeah.
in the concept development, so we're not gonna.
In process.
I was just gonna say, I love that concept. The problem is the hours.
Yeah.
Not to be able to play
Got
during the day, during the week isn't
Got it.
really helping.
Got
The
it.
weekend's great,
Okay.
and we can do that in Monterey High School already.
Okay. All right. Well, let's not have a discussion without the mic. If you want to say something, come up to the mic. No problem.
We submitted a lot of letters, with scientific data that's well-established where, I guess we wouldn't need to hire an acoustic expert because it's, there's a lot of studies already by PhDs in audiology, acoustics, stating how, pickleball noise is just really detrimental to health. And we sent that to for public comment, but I don't see it on the public comment, site, so where's all that?
There were, trust me, there were
Yeah, so
there were at
everybody
least
see it
50
all,
or
right?
60 other ones that we got and we read.
Yeah, I'll just say that when the comments come in, they go to council immediately Then they get printed out for this meeting, so they each have a big stack of
Yeah, yeah.
emails in front of them. And then on Friday, I posted all the comments received up until that point on the website. I haven't had a chance to do the ones this week.
Oh, okay, okay, but, okay, so.
Like, we got a whole bunch late
Yeah, so
yesterday
I
and
just want the
this
public to
morning.
have access to all that. I think there's
Yeah.
quite a few you need to put up there
Yeah,
still, right?
I can
Okay,
probably
cool.
upload that later today.
Okay, thank you.
But I can assure you that we received them.
Right, I just want the
And-
public to
and
see,
I-
because they act like this is unique to Carmel, and it's a national issue.
Okay.
So that's, I think that's important. It's not, we need to do more.
Okay,
you know,
so,
acoustic
so
studies.
Nova, they're gonna go in that Google Drive that you use on the agenda software? Nova, they're gonna go on the Google Drive on the agenda software? So you're gonna enhance that drive to include everything that you have?
Yes, but I've also been responding to people just confirming I received their emails too, except unless it came in this morning, I might not have seen it yet.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, we're gonna break for lunch. Be back in 20 minutes? Is that enough? Okay, 20 minutes. So that's 5 minutes after
I'm not even gonna talk to them about it, because they've already made their mind up that it's too expensive and stuff, so I'm not. Yeah.
Too good. Nova, you ready?
Reese, are we ready? I'm just gonna say, yeah, we're ready.
Yes. All right, we're back in session at 12:06. And public comment is over, and we're going to bring it back for discussion. Jeff, do you want to start? All right, have at it.
Yeah, so I'd like to start by thanking the members of the public that are here and have been through, have been through this process for the preceding months and months and months. And I'd also like to thank staff, and I'd especially like to thank the Forest and Beach Commission. I see 3 of them here, and one of them sort of here, who followed the council's, as it says in the presentation, that followed the council's direction to find a balance. I appreciate it. I appreciated that the council from 2024 gave you a difficult mission, and I appreciate that you did the best that you did put all this work in and did a great, fine job. I also believe that it's important, as a sort of a general rule, I've said this before, to defer to the lower commissions unless we find sort of a significant error. I think the alternative to that is to just litigate and litigate and litigate and until you get the answer you want, and I don't think that's particularly good government. So comment on a couple of things. There have been a lot of discussions, and I asked a question about this earlier about sounds and the measurements and decibels and all that, and I'm not sure that that's the right way to. Apologies, I'm not sure that's the right way to measure the impact of the thwack of the ball against the racket. I think that the pitch of the sound is just as important as the velocity, as the decibel level of the sound. And I also think that the notion that, I also think that the notion that it's okay to subject people to irritatingness, if you want to call that, for only 12 hours a week rather than 40 hours a week or 168 hours a week or whatever it is. I'm not sure that I appreciate that the commission tried that, but I'm not sure that that's really the right, I'm not sure that that's the right, way to mitigate it. I do think that there is an alternative, and I know that some of the pickleball players won't like it. I do think that there's an alternative that removes a lot of the sound, would remove a lot of the sound inconveniences from the nuisances, I should say, from this sport, and it's to change the sport a little bit and go to quiet equipment. I do think that it's worth exploring that solution. I think that that's a different middle ground solution that doesn't involve limiting the hours, but instead involves limiting the equipment. And I would be interested in sort of sending this back to the Forest and Beach Commission with the directive to explore this quiet equipment. Thank you.
What you're suggesting is, as opposed to us making a recommendation for an ordinance, it's looking at the equipment to try to quiet things down for the neighbors.
I think I'm not prepared to say that, so I'm sort of in a quandary. I'm not prepared to say that this solution of looking at quiet equipment, I'm not prepared to say that that's the perfect solution. So I wouldn't be prepared to, we've talked about, ordinances to restrike the tennis courts and ordinances to do a whole number of things. And I'm not prepared to sort of put something not in concrete, but maybe in really thick mud yet. The thing that I think that, the thing that bears some discussion among the council, if this was the way to go, and again, I'm only one of five, if this were the way to go, is, one of the problems has been, we've heard the lack of enforcement ability from the police. And I do think that, and that will eventually have to come back to us. But I do think that if either we develop some, and I'm just using this as an example, some quiet equipment restrictions, or the Forest and Beach Commission comes back with some quiet equipment restrictions, if there are 4 votes, I think that an urgency ordinance to impose penalties, middling sized penalties, not small penalties, on pickleball players that don't use quiet equipment, I think that would be appropriate. But ordinances to go past that, I would look askance on at this point. But I'd really like to hear what other people say.
All right, so no ordinance to adopt the suggestions from the Forest and Beach Commission as it currently stands? Correct, okay.
Yeah, I'm leaning against that, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jeff. Hans?
Yeah, I think pickleball noise actually is a pretty big problem. I played in high school in a gym and really enjoyed it. So I totally get the enjoyment factor. But I do think that repetitive, high-pitched pop from the paddles is incredibly annoying. Someone described it as kind of like an intrusive sound, sort of like intrudes into your thoughts. You're reading a book and we heard that, what happens.
We didn't have the video, but we had John.
Yeah, exactly. And, as people said, it's not just a Carmel-by-the-Sea phenomenon, right? Like a quick Google search shows that in communities like this all over the country, this has been a thing. I come back to, if I lived across the street from these courts, what would I do? I think I'd be pretty exasperated, with the current situation. So I really, kind of lean into that. At the same time, I don't think the neighbors are sort of like as monolithically anti-pickleball as sometimes we maybe think. I spent a couple Saturdays out there kind of walking the neighborhood, knocking on doors just to try to kind of get an informal pulse, and, very small sample size, but like the folks I was able to actually connect with, I would say maybe 15% were sort of vocal pickleball opponents. Maybe 15% were actually vocal pickleball supporters, which was surprising. And I'd say about 70% were kind of indifferent, and some of them were, well, if it bothers my neighbor, I want to support my neighbor. And then some of them were just truly indifferent. So I guess my bottom line is, I think that pickleball without any sound mitigation measures I think it violates the noise element in the general plan. So I sort of strongly think that we can't allow just sort of unmitigated pickleball noise out there based on tracking this issue for the past, year or so. Some people will say, if you don't want noise, don't buy a house in that area. I don't think that's exactly fair. I think people should expect to hear park-like noises, somebody exclaiming when they make a hit. I think that's sort of normal. But I do think that pickleball differs like in a meaningful way in terms of the sound and how annoying it is relative to tennis, for example. And the situation is it used to be tennis. And so folks bought, when it was generally speaking tennis, obviously it was 14 years ago now, but, I think that's an important thing to consider. And so I just feel like we need to get back to a place where the noise level and more importantly, the pitch is, you know, something that approximates tennis. So what are the options? Personally, I guess I agree with what Jeff said. I don't think that restricting the hours solves the problem. You're just sort of pushing sort of one non-compliant activity into a smaller chunk of hours for that activity to, you know, to happen. And I don't think that it addresses the underlying issue, which is sort of how annoying that pop is. So I will be honest with you, I have been leaning towards banning it. But it is a city park. And I think in the interest of sort of trying to find a balance, my preference would be to try to at least try some of these sound mitigation measures, which, you know, we've been at this for a while, but we still actually haven't tried any of them, right? We've restricted the hours, but we haven't done anything to try to mitigate the sound. And it could be the case that it just doesn't work. But, you know, the fencing, there have been communities, you know, former chair of the Forest and Beach Commission, Kelly Brzezinski, she, in Yountville up in Napa, they have had good success. If you look on Google Earth at what that court looks like, it's really close to some homes. It doesn't have the topography that our site has, but you're not looking for total noise eradication. You're just looking for improvement, and potentially if you layer some of these things, that could help. I actually, you know, in sort of reviewing some of the materials on this, one of the things for me that was interesting was to look at the quiet equipment. Initially, I thought the balls, you know, sort of intuitively would be the solution, but when you actually look at the evidence, it says that the balls are less effective, and the most effective thing is the quiet paddle, especially in dampening that that pop. You know, there's like a 5 to 8 decibel reduction from a quiet paddle in terms of the noise. You got to remember it's a logarithmic scale, so every 10 decibels, it's a half as much noise. So it actually is meaningful. But then the most important piece is the pitch or the frequency of the sound, which is that pop, right? And so a normal paddle is apparently 1,100 to 1,200 hertz, and then these quiet paddles that have to be certified by, you know, USA Pickleball apparently get it down to like less than 600 hertz. And it's been described as, you know, going from that intrusive pop to something more akin to like a thud, right? And so there's basically two questions in my mind. One is, you know, do the soft paddles work, right? I would be interested in doing just kind of like a simple demonstration. You know, we get some people out there. We could take the council out there next week, you know, before the council meeting, have some folks play tennis, have some folks play, you know, unmitigated pickleball, and have some folks play with quiet rackets, and just get a sense of, hey, does that seem like it could work for us? And that's a low tech way to think about it. You know, the obvious next question is, and not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but for me, the main issue is like, can you actually enforce that? So you want to have a quiet racket, like, can you possibly enforce that? We've just seen all of these huge enforcement issues where, you know, folks are playing in times they're not supposed to play in, et cetera. And so I sort of thought about that a little bit over the past couple of days, and just in the interest of being constructive, because I know it'll come up, I sort of threw out a couple of ideas. You know, first of all, in that scenario, you would want the quiet equipment to be required. You know, I think in Monterey, it's kind of like a recommendation. I think you'd want this to be required. You'd want city code that says, if you violate this the first time, it's a couple $100, the fines go up, and maybe a repeat offender a third time, it's like a misdemeanor or something, right? I mean, to actually make sure people are following the rules. It's interesting. At first, I was like, how are you going to know if they're using the right kind of racket? But it turns out that like on the racket, with these quiet rackets, there's literally like an emblem that says like USA Pickleball Quiet on it. So it would be pretty easy for you to tell if it's a quiet racket. Still, I don't think it's like the best idea to have like the police, you know, coming out there anytime somebody's like, well, it doesn't sound like a quiet racket to me. So I thought about, the idea of kind of having some ambassadors. Maybe the pickleball community could step up and have some volunteers, particularly if it was still limited to a certain number of days, 3 days a week, the 6 hours a day. If you get a few people that take like a 3-hour shift, maybe you play pickleball for an hour and a half, you read the newspaper for a little bit, maybe that's something that could be workable. I think we're at the point now where the onus kind of has to shift to the folks in the pickleball community to make sure that this activity can work for the people that live here. If you have these remote controlled gates, I think, that helps a lot with making sure that the courts remain locked. We could get some loaner paddles that the ambassador could have that we could keep locked away. I think there's a way that it could potentially be workable. So I just throw those out as sort of constructive ideas. But I do think the burden of this at this point needs to shift. For example, while we're getting that stuff set up, I just don't think that we can have unmitigated pickleball play out there at this point. So I would be up for just cutting that off until we get a different system, a pilot in play. And I don't think it should be a pilot that lasts forever. But I think it's worth taking a shot at it, but just kind of with those caveats.
What action would you be prepared to take today?
Prepared to do today?
Yes, recommend.
Yeah, I think that we should get out there as a council and maybe as a Forest and Beach Commission. We could just do it, potentially before one of the meetings next week. We still have time to notice it. And like I said, just do a demonstration. Get some folks out there with the quiet equipment and somebody playing tennis. And, let's just see what's the difference, right? And we can go stand in somebody's living room. We could go stand in somebody's patio. And try to get a sense of what the lived experience is for somebody that lives next to the court.
Okay, so it sounded like if that wasn't an option, you would be in favor of just banning it. Mm-hmm. But pending that, let's look at the equipment, which is what Jeff said.
Yeah.
So we've got two on that. All right, thank you. That was a nice analysis.
All right, so I'm concerned that we're so far moving towards a lack of making a decision. And this has been, I think we owe the people in this room a decision today. A wise man once coached me that try to make decisions that you won't regret and that retain flexibility in the future, right? And so that's what I'm trying to find in my own mind. The quiet equipment, so I play pickleball. I used to play at Forest Park. I stopped playing because it was too busy. It was too, it was bad. You couldn't find a parking spot. It was fun. It was loud. It was a lot going on. But I still play. I just joined a private club and play there. I've played with the quiet equipment. The silent ball is called the Librarian. And it's quieter. There's no doubt about it. It's not pickleball. It's not the same game. It's fun. It's just not pickleball. And personally, I could probably just adopt and, okay, let's go play librarian ball. It's just a different game. But it's not the mainstream game. It is, somebody said it's like playing tennis with a ping pong ball. That's kind of right. And playing tennis isn't just about playing tennis today on your court. It's that there's a whole world that plays tennis, and the beauty of it, even though the surfaces change, it's basically always the same game wherever you go. And that's true with pickleball as well. So to pursue a variant, I'm afraid it won't work. And I certainly don't know how you would ever enforce it. I mean, ambassadors, great idea, but I just don't want to put the police chief in the job of, show me your pickleball, right? Show me your paddle. I don't know how it works. So as I think about it, to start with the neighbors, you did move next to a park. You didn't move next to a pickleball court. I get it. And pickleball, the noise is annoying. But you did move next to a park. Parks are public, and the uses of parks aren't predictable. And somebody mentioned skateboarding, right? And I think that was the challenge of 30 years ago, as skateboards were everywhere. And they were especially in parks, and they were especially on tennis courts. And basically the solution there was to outlaw it, right? There was, really the solution there was to build skate parks. And that is interesting. I mean, to the people who suggest we find a different location, thanks to those who've done the work on the middle school, I do think that's a pressure relief valve that is helpful, especially on the weekends. I would feel a lot better about banning pickleball, for example, on the weekends when I know there is an outlet, a free outlet somewhere else that moves it around. But I don't know of any place else in the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea that we could put it. That wouldn't have the same problems. We don't have the space. So where I would go is I would start with the Forest and Beach Commission's recommendation. They've been working hard on this. They worked hard on it for a long time. They gave us a suggestion 6 months ago. It took us 6 months to get this meeting on the books, just because of all the other things we have going on. I'm afraid if we don't take some sort of action today, it'll be another 6 months before we get back here, and that's 6 more months without a resolution and without something that can be enforced. Because I don't think we're going to be popping back here in a couple of weeks. My inclination is to respect the Forest and Beach Commission and do as they've requested and pass a resolution more or less as they requested. But let me give you some thoughts. I think a big challenge is it's the volume of play and the volume of players. And I think we've already seen that by limiting the hours, there's less noise because there's less play. And what I'm hearing, and it's anecdotal, I don't have the evidence other than when I walk by there once in a while, I have not seen that crush of people that we saw in 2022 and 2023. That's not what I'm seeing anymore. It seems to be pretty much locals playing. One of the things that I saw in 2023 was a lot of people from out of town, a lot of them that were they were so excited to be playing pickleball. They were so excited that the powers that be finally said, you're not going to die from playing pickleball, that they were excited to be there. But I think that really contributed to the kind of nuttiness of the whole thing. And so I'm curious, I'm interested in limiting the volume of players and therefore the volume of play. I think limiting hours of play is helpful in doing that, but I wonder if there's a way to also just limit who can play. I used the word segregation before. It's not a popular word, but we're trying to create a segregation between pickleball and tennis by building the fence. I mentioned before the lock system, electronic locks, can be a lot more than they are. So I'll take the tangent. I'm a founder of a software company. It's a property tech software company, and actually what we do is we allow the owners and landlords of commercial real estate to schedule, monetize the amenities that are in a building. So the obvious one is conference rooms, but increasingly it is a rec room, it's something on the roof, and a big piece of that, it's software, but it's coordinated with access control. The world of access control is very advanced. What we can do there is someone just goes onto our software and finds a conference room and reserves it, and maybe pays for it if that's required, or maybe not. They reserve it, and then we actually send them a code, and that's the code on the app, when they basically go up to that conference room, they're in. And we know they're in, and we know that they're supposed to be there for an hour, and we tell them when their hour is up. The software and that access control has been deployed in some really interesting aspects. I don't think we've done pickleball courts yet. And I'm not proposing my business to be the solution here. I'm just giving you an idea that if I'll put it this way, if we had a Parks and Rec department, if we were a significant sized city and we had a Parks and Rec department, we would probably have the ability for people to go and reserve pickleball courts. And we would maybe have something like this so that they could gain access to the court or not gain access to the court, so that only the people that reserve the court can use the court. And you can't, and there's no such thing as a walk-in. You reserve the court. So I just wonder if that's something we can explore a little more of as we move forward, because I know the technology exists. And maybe, Hans, your idea about ambassadors, I agree with you that the pickleball community could step up more. I think we don't know, I know, they already have a WhatsApp channel to communicate with each other. I witnessed it when the nets all wore out, and basically Susie sent out a WhatsApp saying, let's raise some money and get some new nets, and it was done in a day. So they're a friendly bunch. They talk to each other. They know each other. They've already got the ability to communicate. Maybe we ask you to formalize that a little more. Maybe we ask you to actually be the Carmel Pickleball Club. Maybe that's a nonprofit. And between that and this door access control, we can limit the number of users. And we can't discriminate against hotel guests or people from Pacific Grove or anywhere else, but by forcing some protocol for reserving and accessing, I think we would greatly limit the amount of play, and you can absolutely enforce the hours in that regard. So my proposal would be that from a logistics standpoint, we go ahead and approve the fence down the middle. I don't think, I disagree on the 40-60. I think I would just split it right down the middle. Why? Because I want to make a decision I won't regret, and I want to maintain the future. I think I might regret, splitting a tennis court 40-60. Maybe pickleball will disappear from the planet in 2 years, and tennis has a resurgence, and now I've got a 60-foot wide tennis court and a 40-foot wide tennis court. So I don't think I've preserved the future, but I do think it would make sense to go ahead and build the fence. I think we should invest in the locks, the electronic locks on the west and on the east. We won't regret doing that. Then we can absolutely control the hours, and really more importantly, control limiting access. I would go with I'd start at 10 to 4, because that's what we're at right now. And again, that's a decision I won't regret because I can change it later, right? Then I think we start working on sound. Once you get that fence up, I think we could build that middle fence sturdy enough to take the baffling, the sound absorption. I think that would help quite a bit, actually, and I'm speculating, I understand that. But I think if you built that as a 10 or a 12-foot fence and put the sound barrier on it, that all the sound going to the west, towards the majority of the neighbors, is addressed. Also, people have suggested you need to keep that tennis net between the two pickleball courts, and just as a player you do. Otherwise, you're going to have a real safety issue with the two games constantly interrupting each other, and even whether it's a tennis net or some other barrier there. But then I think we should start by passing a resolution so that our police can enforce this. So that when somebody shows up and somehow gets into the court, what's going to happen is somebody's going to show up on a tennis day with their pickleball and their pickleball court, and that's going to happen. And again, we can maybe restrict that somehow through the access, but I also think that's a great example of something that needs to be enforced, and that we've given the police and the neighbors a mechanism for enforcement. We should get down there and look at the parking situation. Dale, you mentioned it. I think we should actually invest in identifying parking spaces and closing some of the ones that should not be parking spaces. I appreciate the safety issue. Those of us who live near the beach for the last 4 days have just been overwhelmed by cars to the point, I don't think a fire truck could get down my street on most weekends anymore. And that's what's happening to you up there because of this. So I think we could do a better job of managing that. So I'd like to do something as opposed to do nothing. And I really don't think we need more data or should be studying this anymore. I think we can take a step forward and then revise it as we go. Thanks.
Days of week.
Whatever was proposed, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to 4. Let's start there. Let's enable it with the technology, maybe with some scheduling. And if we feel that the problem is being controlled, maybe you can expand the hours. And on the other hand, if it's being abused, you can cut them back. But that's it. That's just a simple decision.
Okay.
What else?
Well said.
Okay.
Thank you. Alessandra?
Thanks, Mayor. First, I want to thank all the members of the public that came out for public comment and just who came to attend this meeting. It's a passionate issue on both sides, and I appreciate the civility that everyone exhibited today, so thank you for that. And I just want to add, there's no doubt that pickleball is a fun game, it's a social game, it's good exercise, and we all appreciate that and encourage that. However, I'm falling on the side of the residents, the neighboring residents on this issue. I think number one is our residents and having a quiet community has to come first. Don't like that this has caused strife in the community. I don't like that the police are being called and being called out to the neighborhood. That's just not a good feeling for a community to have. I think ultimately, the only solution is going to have to be to ban it and to find alternate location to play. For example, if this thing works out with the Carmel Middle School where it's also free and we have good hours where people can play after school and on the weekends. Just regarding some of the issues that have been brought up, the safety issue, I'm concerned about the parking and the congestion and the crowds to that neighborhood. There's been discussion about softball, different paddles, but we've already heard from the players that it changes the game. It's not going to be the same game if you're forced to play that. And the enforcement issue, once again, comes up. People calling the police and the constant strife that will still be there because the neighbors will be checking on, oh, this person's not playing with the right equipment, and then you call the police. It's just going to continue the antagonism and the bad feeling that we don't want in the community. We want the community to come together. As far as the acoustic fencing, I just don't really think it's possible. We have the crime and safety concerns that the chief had brought up because you're blocking some visibility. There's the cost, there's the height of it, and the other aspect is it's also going to be ugly. So I don't approve the Forest and Beach plan. I think ultimately, the way that we're going to need to restore peace to the neighborhood and the community is to ban it, and literally and figuratively, that might be the only solution we have. And I also have a concern about the property values because the people who bought their homes there, have been there for a while, and pickleball was not an issue then. Now, for example, if they try to sell their home and there's the noise and the concerns with that, it may hurt their property values. So I certainly respect that, and that's a concern as well. So that's where I stand on this. I know we're split right now, but
Thank you. I want to bring up another point that I'm not sure was discussed thoroughly so far, is there was a proposal from the public to limit it to one court. I'd like to know what each of you think about that idea. Jeff?
I don't know.
Okay. Hans?
Honestly, I think I'm more concerned about having some noise mitigation. I could go either way on it.
Okay.
Thanks. It's a good comment. I'm not sure it solves any problem. I mean, it does, in theory, it lowers the volume of players. But again, there's this aspect of pickleball where you just show up. And if there's only one court, you might still have 8 people showing up and just kind of still parking. And so I'm not sure it moves the needle. You know, you could start by just striping one court and buying one net and preserving the opportunity to add a second one later, or similarly, you can take one out. But no.
Alessandra, you just,
I don't think it's necessarily the answer.
okay, all right, so it sounds like that's a no. So I have to say that I think in this town, we have to respect the situation with the neighbors. I know that I wouldn't want to live across the street from those pickleball courts. I've been doing a lot of research on this and looking at probably 100 situations around the country where this is playing out. And some of them end up in lawsuits, which we certainly don't want. I just wonder, I played handball when I was younger, a lot with the glove, where your hand swells up. I don't know why I ever did it, but it was fun. And then I switched to racquetball, and I played a lot of racquetball. I'm a good tennis player. I played pickleball twice at my sister's house up in Utah, and I stopped because I knew I would hurt myself. And a lot of people do. It's not something 71-year-olds should be doing a lot, but it's fun. I love the exercise part of it. I love the social aspects of it. I just don't think that that location is a good place for it. I really don't. I agree with Hans in that regard. I also think that we've done a pretty good job preliminarily to work at the middle school to find some courts. I think all day, as long as you want on weekends, 7 minutes away is a good option. I would love it if the city could invest somehow, and I think we could probably talk to people at this council into spending some money. If we could invest in building a couple pickleball courts with access to parking and security enough that they could play more than just after school. But during the summer, you can play all the time. Am I correct? Based on the proposal, that's a lot. You know, so 7 minutes away, you actually have high-quality courts with good parking, and nobody cares how much noise you make, and that's a really positive thing. Unfortunately, Graham Robertson isn't here. I just texted him to see what his latest is in terms of what kind of access we could have and when. But that certainly is a safety valve to get people out and having fun and doing what they're doing. So as much as it pains me to say this, because I love the people that we're talking about, how much fun they have playing pickleball, I think I would weigh in with Alessandra at this point. And Hans, enforcement is a big deal. We just don't have the resources to be spending a lot of time going out and making sure people are using the right equipment. The soft equipment appealed to me. I think Bob talked me out of it. So I would have to say that I would lean in with Hans and Alessandra. I know there are other options, and I wouldn't mind supporting those, investigating the equipment, but I think we're gonna end up right back here again with a discussion, and I think Bob convinced me of that. So I think that we have, unless I'm mistaken, I think we have 3 of us who would support. If you wanna, you heard all this, why don't you summarize?
I think we had like 2.5, and I would turn to Mr. Booter and see
we could go
whether
back.
he agrees with the mayor.
Yeah, there's a couple potential coalitions here, but Bob mentioned the fence. I am interested in the fence. The benefit of the fence is it doesn't require any enforcement. Are you interested in the fence as an option?
In the locks.
I think the fence just, I think the fence presents a path of scientific discovery that I'm not sure we're prepared to go down. That's why, I stated sort of at the beginning that I thought, with no disrespect, I stated at the beginning that I thought that the sort of pitch of the noise and the volume of the noise was the big deal, was the thing, and I think that the quiet equipment you know, as I spoke about earlier, you know, I know people aren't crazy about it, but it's a known solution. You know, admittedly, it has its enforcement challenges, but it's a known solution versus starting down the fence road, which is putting up big fences and worrying about maintenance and worrying about the wind, you know, the wind during the winter and what we're gonna do and all that. That seems like quicksand, to me, is what it is. And I'm having a hard time shaking that feeling that we're gonna be back here in, you know, we're gonna install it in September and we're gonna be back here in April, and it may or may not have worked, and we're gonna be trying to figure out whether we need to make the fence taller, or whether we need to punch holes in it so that it's wind resistant, or maybe we picked the wrong fencing material. We should have used this kind of foam and not that kind of foam. It seems, you know, I'm not there yet.
Doesn't sound like there's real strong support for the soft equipment, and we could interview people in the room that play, but I think they've told us at the Forest and Beach Commissions that
I would
that's not
say,
gonna work.
to your point, Mayor, I mean, I would say that, you know, you advocated for, with no disrespect, I mean, you advocated for respecting the wishes of the neighbors, and I think that's what, you know, Hans and I, when we talk about the soft equipment, I think that that's what we're doing too. And if you're prepared to take the step of banning it altogether, which sounds like where you are, why would we not take this intermediate step?
I'm not against that.
Yeah.
But Bob did a pretty good case that he thinks we'll end up right back here again, looking at it. We have people from the Forest and Beach Commission here who've gone through this in great detail. Could you come up, which is the best? Could you come up here and tell us about the soft equipment? Because I'm not against the soft equipment. That's what I would do, because I wouldn't want to annoy the neighbors. I would just do it to be polite. But why don't you tell us what you learned and whether you think it would work?
Good afternoon,
Hi.
Mayor and council people.
Could you turn on the sound for the podium, please? Okay.
It's on, okay. We did deliberate the soft equipment, and a lot of the feedback that we got from the players was that we wouldn't even want to play. There's no use in playing. It's a different game, as Bob had said. So that was something that we did talk about. I think why we ended up, in part, to sort of cut to the chase where we did, was we looked, we heard all of this about fencing and all the various different things that you're talking about here as well. And we felt that if we mitigated a lot of the things like the playing time, the things like the number of courts, because sound was a factor that in fact would help with the ultimate sound. Which, in speaking with the neighbors, that is what we're hearing. It's helped with parking. It's helped with the numbers of people. I think one of the biggest things at this point is that we haven't been able to enforce a lot of this. And I think that's where a lot of the contention is at this point, is that when folks come out to play on Wednesday or Friday, they just get on the court, or they play on the tennis court if the others are being taken. So I think that's some of what is causing the biggest problems at this point. We had hoped, I think, that a lot of the pickleball players in this area would act as ambassadors and would sort of help if they saw that there were people from out of town who perhaps were just playing on a day or hours that weren't allowed, that they might step in. It doesn't sound as though that had happened. So it's been disappointing to see that, because I hate to see where we are now, because, you know, I think that we wanted to make sure that the neighbors, it sounds as though, I mean, I've had a home here since 2010. My sons play tennis. I recall the sort of evolution into pickleball around 2011, 12, 13, 14, and there really wasn't a lot of issue about it, except that our kids couldn't get on the courts. So I think that it wasn't and until it had really picked up, that it became the, issue that we are dealing with now. I think when there were less players, that it was a workable thing for the neighbors and for the players. So we had hoped that we could return back to that, and I think that we have to a large extent. Kelly, I don't know if you wanted to add.
I think I would echo the comments on the soft equipment. That was something we deliberated many times, both looking at the scientific literature, listening to the pickleball players. That just didn't seem to be a path that would be workable in terms of play satisfaction or enforcement. I will say that there seems to be a legacy of there was a time when it was, crazy up there, right? I think one of the people spoke about January 2023. I think there were lots of players, lots of cars, lots of chaos. It seems like since the pickleball play has been reduced, that the parking and the concerns have gone down significantly. And I think that there does remain an opportunity for pickleball to still be played there. We looked into neighboring jurisdictions. I think Yountville is the one that has come up several times. Their Parks and Recs department chair, who went through 5 years of contentious pickleball in Yountville. When I inquired at the beginning, he said, don't get side railed by quiet equipment. It doesn't work. Like, don't take the siren song calling of that. He said the two things that have made it work in our community are the Acoustifence, which I think they were able to install for just $10,000 5 or 7 years ago. So our quotes were much higher than that, but they put Acoustifence in. And he said the second thing is our Parks and Recs department, we established a citizens group of 5 people that's comprised of a couple of residents that live right by the courts, because the homes up in Yountville are as close as ours, and pickleball leadership or pickleball players. And they did put in place a pickleball ambassador system where they've had pickleball players show up at the courts to help the implementation, to make sure that people were playing by the rules, that we're playing the right way, et cetera. And he said that citizens group and the Acoustifence are the 2 biggest impacts to making it work well in their community. So I was just glad to hear some of you coming up organically with this idea of pickleball ambassadors. I do think that could be very, very helpful. And I suspect that the amount of play and the parking and everything right now is dramatically reduced versus what it was a few years ago, and is probably at a level that could be reasonable for both residents and players if we were able to have some soundproofing, Acoustifence type material installed, as well as some sort of collaborative communication and participation by both the residents and some of the pickleball players. That would be my only comment.
Okay, sounds like soft equipment is a no-go.
I think that's what we had determined just through our research and with the public comment. I think if we had more public comment on that right now, we'd probably hear the same.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Go ahead.
I'll help you along. I would say at this point, I'm closer to Bob's position than Alessandra's position. And I'm not prepared to vote to say, if we're not going to go down the road of soft equipment, I'm not prepared to vote, I'm not prepared to ban it yet. And, Hans spoke a few minutes ago about there being a coalition, and I heard that.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if you brought up the idea of the fence, Bob, in the middle, like we talked about in the question and answer session, it feels like that would address the height issue because it's so much closer to the pickleball play. The main issue with the fence for me has always been, like, we don't know what it's going to sound like once it's installed, and the cost of installing it is a lot higher than like requiring people to use a quiet paddle, for example. Yeah. So my thought had been, let's just try the quiet paddle. It doesn't cost us anything, right? You have ambassadors out there who make sure, like, they're the ones making sure that you use the quiet paddle. But, I guess this is a question of the quotes they got were $30,000 to $60,000. And I'd be curious to ask Tom, is the plan to do the entire four sides of that smaller, pickleball court. Is that right, Chip?
Well, I mean, I think, if you told me to come back with an ordinance as structured by Mr. Delves for measured play, the way that Forest Beach is recommended, we'll come back to you with options on the fencing, whether it be that new middle fence to attenuate the sound, or whether it be the entire box on the eastern half of the courts that would attenuate just the pickleball portion of the courts. So we have back options for you. We bring back a draft ordinance and then options for spending.
Yeah, I guess here's where I'm at. I don't support at this point just having like what I would call kind of unmitigated standard pickleball play, even if it's reduced hours out there. So it's either, I'm not hearing support for the quiet equipment, so it's either the fence.
Barbara's shaking her head no every time the soft equipment.
But
And she knows a lot about pickleball in this town, so.
It's either the fence or nothing, right? And the problem with the fence, and I sort of want to lean in that direction, is just we're going to spend more money on it. We're not 100% sure what the result is going to be. We might be $50,000 into a proposed solution, and in 4 months, 5 months when it gets installed, after a week or two, we're like, didn't really work. So that's the concern I have about that. That being said, I don't think it's something I might be willing to take a chance on. I'm curious to see what other people say.
And that was I'm sorry, Mr. Bruder, that was my intention, was to bring back an ordinance regulating controlled pickleball play. It's kind of a quid pro quo, right? And we're going to allow this to happen, and our investment, if you will be in some sort of attenuation, sound attenuation, whether it's the whole box or just the new parting wall, and it will bring back prices. So we would not, that would be our investment, so to speak, in trying to attenuate the sound.
Could I just, I thought we heard from Tom, and I thought it was pretty clear that the fence was pretty much out of the question between how high it would have to be, and then there was something that it might not be able to be installed with the way the flagstone wall and everything's built. Tom, could you re-explain all that to us, just so we're clear about everything?
Well, I think he was talking about the existing fence along the western edge. You can come up, please correct me, Tom. But I guess where I thought Mr. Bruder was going, council member, was the proposed fence that would go between the tennis court and the new pickleball courts, that would divide the courts on the east-west axis, and then attenuating the sound within that area, within that new box. Can we show the slide maybe with the yellow line down the middle, please?
Because I thought we're also discussing putting it all the way around.
And what I was suggesting to Mr. Buda is I would bring back a price for the whole thing for you, and you would basically get to choose.
But engineering-wise, it may not even be something that could be constructed, is the way I understood it.
So if you look on the left side of our screen, what Tom was saying was that because of the topography, where it says 117 feet, that's an elevation. So it goes uphill from there as you move to the west. And so what Tom, I think, was saying is that the fence along that elevation would need to be a lot higher, 10 to 12 feet, to help attenuate the sound to an adjacent property that has a second-story addition to the west. And what I was just suggesting is that based on some of the comments I'm trying to wade through, is that new yellow line in the middle, if that's going to be a new fence that separates the courts, that we would attenuate the sound there, and on the other side of the courts, and the north and the south elevations, and I'd bring back prices to do the whole thing as well. And that way you'd have more information from which to choose. How was that?
That's certainly an option. One thing I wanted to highlight is that per Councilmember Booter's discussion point about if there were a 12-foot fence down the middle on the yellow line, I think that angle very well might in fact reach the height that you want to get to.
Because it's right next to the pickleball court.
If it were right next to the pickleball court. And then to address the matter of, I think you're referring to the footings, is that correct? Councilmember Dromoff was talking about, I believe the installation, when I had spoken with Javier, he had said there are engineering calculations that would need to be done. They can be done, but they must be done. We would need to issue ourselves our own building permit per Dwayne. Other cities have totally done that. A ton of other cities have done that. So yes, you would be able to install those footings on that new fence, but I can't speak to the prior fences that are already there that we will want to put coverings over, such as the south side and part of the north side.
Yeah, and that's a good, it's a great, Councilmember Dramoff, your question along, again, that 117-foot elevation on the west side and the left side of the screen. We would come back with information about whether that fence can currently support a pound per square foot of attenuation material.
But we're just taught, to be clear, we're just, I thought Hans's idea and the idea that I've sort of bought on into was that the soundproofing material would just go on the yellow fence in the picture, is that right?
That doesn't help.
To Tom's point, the angle of attack between the pickleball court and the houses is significantly better with the yellow fence than with the far western fence.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to go on the yellow fence. Sound obviously is a, is a funny thing, and I hear stuff clear as day at my house from the high school, whereas if I go 200 yards, to the east, I can't hear anything, and so I think, you guys would need to really talk to a company that does because I think you struggled to kind of get in touch or get them out here, right? We still haven't had one of these fence companies on site.
In person on site, no. They did send us very, very clear, I mean, we could just do the math right now and it would equal out to roughly what we had said before in our prior presentations. I would fairly confident that $50,000 is what it would cost, ballpark, it wouldn't
Just for
be
the yellow
10,000.
fence?
No, not just for the yellow fence, for
A box.
For the yellow fence, the south side and the north side, that would probably be $45,000. We have it's by square footage. We have the
And you need more than the yellow fence
numbers.
because the people living across the street.
And Mr. Mayor, may I please invite up former Chair Brzezowski, current
Yes.
Commissioner, to discuss the fence matter.
I would just say the one comment, when the city was looking at the fence, that was when it was still under discussion that there were 4 pickleball courts being played on those 2 tennis courts. So all of the inquiry related to any sort of acoustifence or sound mitigation was against 4 courts and lots of people.
It's almost twice as much material.
Almost twice as much material. So I think it would be worth exploring the acoustifence on that middle fence, because you may not need to go 12 feet high based on the angles of the pickleball, but having 1 or 2 of these acoustifence type providers provide a proper quote seems like a reasonable approach. I also think we did hear, I don't want to speak for the pickleball community, I'm not a pickleball player, but we did hear from the pickleball community, I think, that they would be willing to help fundraise in part for some of the work that might need to be done to continue the pickleball there. So I'm not sure that it has to be 100% city funded. I would certainly encourage you to perhaps talk to the pickleball people. But it looks like a new quote, and I think that these acoustifence companies are in high demand all over the US, which is probably why it was hard for us maybe to get the responsiveness from them. But they are installed in neighboring jurisdictions, so perhaps some of those relationships might be able to help us to get better access to them.
And I think why we were looking at just the center was what we had talked about earlier with the if we're boxed in with the police department being able to have sight into the courts. So we were focused on just that center area. So that was another reason for just the focus on the yellow fence.
On the other hand, it wouldn't help the people across the street, so we would still have the complaints coming in.
Or maybe
Not
on one of the.
necessarily. I think it depends on the angle of the ball and where that acoustifence is, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's
It all gets very complicated. We've got a lot of projects on our plate as a city right now. We're paving roads, we're renovating our library, and we're gonna have other projects going on, and I'm not sure we have the bandwidth for even taking this on, because one thing leads to another. It just gets more complicated all the time. So at this point, I haven't changed my opinion. Alessandra, have you?
No, I still have the same concerns I have, and I don't necessarily think the fence is gonna be the solution, because I'm all for, we can get more information on it, but I just think we're gonna go back to the same thing, that it says here specifically might not resolve issue due to elevated homes nearby, and dampened sound may still produce complaints.
Yeah, I think everything we just discussed, the soft equipment, the fences, I agree with Bob in terms of putting the fence down the middle so we keep our options open, should this not work. But, and I'm all for looking for other possible ways to provide pickleball facilities for our residents and for visitors. I think it's a great thing, and I would certainly be willing to put effort into that, and I have been. So I haven't changed my opinion, so I'm not sure where that leaves us. It's been a healthy discussion.
I will say, that Jeff described what I was proposing as, potentially a journey of scientific discovery. I think that's correct, because, it's your proposal of banning pickleball is finite, it's black and white. You know the outcome more or less, you'll still have abuse, but.
We know, and we think we could enforce that as well.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to keep a door open to not regret the decision and be flexible as you go. But we will spend money. We will discover as we go. We may fail. So I just want to acknowledge that I'm still on that path, but I think that's kind of the trade-off.
I'm all for having the door open, even if we banned it, to continue to look for solutions. I just don't think we're going to be able to do that in a reasonable time frame. In the meantime, the neighbors are having their situation.
So I guess, I think there's a chance that the dollars could come down given it's significantly less material on the other side. I don't know if that number included reinforcing some of the footings. I would go into it eyes wide open, knowing that it could not work, right? Like there's a probability tree and one of the branches is, hey, it just doesn't work. I guess I need to go over to Pacific Grove and, sit outside the fence down there and see what that sounds like personally. I don't know if that's something we should do together, but, it sounds like it would be a month, because we're not agendized for action today, right?
So we're not. No.
So we would have a chance to get on the ground and see what that sounds like. I think I'm in favor of taking a shot at it, but again, my bias is toward the residents. And so I'm kind of uncomfortable letting unmitigated pickleball happen in the interim until we get a fence. I mean, I sort of have come to the conclusion that unmitigated pickleball is incompatible with the neighborhood. I'm willing to try it to try to strike a balance with the fence, but in the interim, I don't know that we should be having folks out there just playing pickleball without any sound mitigation.
I'm not sure what you're suggesting.
So I'm suggesting that we have staff go back, get us a hard quote on the best way to do this. And I think that we should have the Forest and Beach recommendation of split the court. I think 50-50 makes sense because for all the reasons that Bob mentioned.
Can I stop you for a sec? Yeah. Just while you're talking about that. I'm not sure I'm in agreement, because as I look at this, the picture up here, if there's no pickleball, so fast forward 3 years and this experiment fails and there's no pickleball, there's not going to be a fence, right? The fence, that yellow fence, is just going to come down, right?
No. It could still be a barrier between.
It's nice to have a barrier.
So my issue,
nice.
my issue is that putting the fence in the middle. My concern is that putting the fence in the middle makes the left side tennis court much harder to navigate on the, not the baseline, the other line, on the line that faces the other court. That there's only going to be 18 inches or 2 feet between the court. between the court and the fence, and that's not enough room. Like, I don't play tennis, but I watch tennis, and they are often more than 2 feet over the sideline. So that is my concern, you know, and certainly that's more of an issue if you're playing doubles. So I believe that that's an advantage provided by the 60-40 split in the positioning of the fence. But this is not
That's a great consideration. Let's take it back to the staff and they can get some recommendations on, you know, does it need to be 60 feet from a safety standpoint so people aren't running into the fence?
Yeah, so I'll bring back an ordinance with the Forest and Beach Commission's recommendation for you, with statistics, financial statistics on the best way to attenuate the sound, both from the noise standpoint as well as the financial standpoint that you can choose from. My concern is what you said at the end, Mr. Pooter, which is you don't want if you're going to prohibit pickleball play on these courts, that you're going to have the existing conditions and you're going to have these impacts continue to be imposed upon the surrounding residents. With that in mind, would you like me to bring back an urgency ordinance when I come back as well, that you can choose from that would immediately terminate pickleball play on these courts? That way you're not waiting another duration of time to pass an urgency ordinance. And again, the city attorney can tell you all about an urgency ordinance, but if I bring back both of those ordinances with more beta, you might be able to make a decision at the next meeting.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at, is I think that for me, just the unmitigated pickleball has to end. And so having an urgency ordinance that basically says that until we get some sound mitigation in place, you know, it's regrettable, but I think that that's just kind of where we are.
Okay, so we'll bring back both those suite of options. Thank you. Jeff, do you have anything to say?
My only comment would be, as you write the ordinance, and I guess you'd have to talk to Brian about this, is that if you could find a way that the hours could be fixed other than in the ordinance. So
we have flexibility.
So we have flexibility in sort of mucking around with the hours. So so the ordinance doesn't say Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 10 to 4.
You know, again, that's the challenge. Again, we can't enforce a policy, so if we don't build those hours and days of operation.
The hours
into
listed on the
ordinance-
fence.
It's sort of what we did with our
Can
wireless
it
ordinance.
be, Hans is there, like, can it be the hours listed on the fence?
Can we reference a policy by ordinance, Counselor?
We did that with our wireless ordinance to some extent, where we put it in another document.
If it's not in the ordinance, it's not enforceable, and the ordinance would not be able to say, check the policy, because, you know, the policies can change, and people are on notice of the ordinance. So I've heard there's conversation about an urgency ordinance, and also a conversation maybe about a draft ordinance, at least this is what I understood, that would basically incorporate the provisions that are in the Forest and Beach policy. Is that right?
Yes, sir. We'll bring back both. We'll bring back both options.
Understood.
We'll notice both options.
And that the urgency ordinance, the only thing that would be in the urgency ordinance would be to prohibit pickleball at this location, and it would say pending further study by the city with regards to noise attenuation.
Correct.
At the location. And then the ordinance itself would incorporate the policy of Forest and Beach as it's written, or would it be modified?
I understood it would be as it was written, but with the sound attenuation that the city would do the installation. So again, when Mr. Ford brings back how much it's going to cost and how much the sound could be attenuated, the council will get to choose from that list of options, along with adopting, I guess, their first ordinance.
Oh, and the fencing
Study
and
of the
the locking mechanisms.
Yeah,
and all of that,
locking
yeah.
as well.
Okay, so there would be like basically a placeholder in the ordinance that would have some language with regard to the sound
That's
attenuation.
the way I'm envisioning it.
Although I think we could probably, I don't know that that is something that would need enforcement. I mean, I think that's just kind of like a public works project and you give direction.
I think it more of as a condition of approval.
Yes.
On the council's part. It's kind of giving, you know.
I think we can do the math on this and
Yeah.
get back to you. I'm not sure that it's going to be, are you looking for this urgency ordinance to be brought back to you next week?
No, we bring it back in October with the other ordinance. So
Okay.
both ordinances would come back at the same time for the council to choose from.
Did we agree to change 60/40 to 50/50? I think that makes sense.
Can we just, can you guys study that a little bit more? about just the
What the factors are for
Right.
making it
Yeah,
dangerous
for the
for tennis
floor,
players.
so yeah, we'll bring that, yeah.
I might ask one other question of the council people. Should we leave the investigations that have been going on into the other locations, into this sound mitigation, going off-site and doing, looking at other locations informal like it's been? Or do you want to take a couple people or one person and call it a work group with
I like working
maybe
with
Tom Ford?
with Councilmember Dramoff and you, Mayor, and again, Ken was involved, so we've been at the meetings, but we're trying to get the school district there, so it's worked well. Councilmember Dramoff, would you agree, or, so far?
I'm fine with it being informal too. That's okay.
By the way, I did communicate with Graham, and he just said things are progressing, but also there are other public courts close by as well. Monterey Peninsula College and Tularcitos Elementary School in the Valley.
Okay, so, I'm willing to, I'm already doing it, so.
Yeah.
Alessandro, you want to work with me to do that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of what you said.
To keep plotting ahead to try to find the other locations and also to research some of the sound mitigation
Yeah,
portions?
I mean, we've absolutely set the ground and started working on that, so I absolutely think we need to continue with that. However long it takes, it's difficult working with the school district and all the different layers of bureaucracy you
Okay,
have to go
so
through.
we'll work on the side, we'll call it a work group, but it's not super formal, but we're just keep moving ahead on that.
Yeah, I think informal
And
is
Chip's
good.
helping us too.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you guys should continue because this might not work.
And I know you're gonna dig into it too, so.
No, I think it's, appreciate all the work that Graham has
We can't all
done
three
and
do it at the
you've
same
done.
time.
Totally.
Okay.
The only question I had was, is there any interest from anybody else to tour the pickleball courts in PG just to kind of see what that sounds like before we make the investment? I would be interested, but.
Why don't we add that to the field trip?
Perfect.
Prior to considering these two ordinances, ideally in October.
Great.
Okay, absolutely. All right, you have direction?
Yes, sir, thank you, council.
Does everybody in the audience know what we're doing? So maybe we want to restate it so we don't leave here with confusion.
Here we go, ready?
After
So
3
we're gonna
hours.
come back, we're gonna bring back two ordinances on the same agenda platform. One, that's going to be the Forest and Beach Commission's recommendation for the truncated hours of play of pickleball on these courts, with the obligation that we install the locking mechanisms and that we investigate sound attenuation, whether it's just on the new orange, yellow line that you see, or whether it's the whole court. We're gonna bring back basically the acoustic measurements and how the sound can be attenuated, as well as our financial investment. And the pickleballers, you can come to the fore and actually, as suggested, maybe share some of the costs as the past chair has suggested. At that same meeting, we're going back an urgency ordinance. An urgency ordinance by state law takes effect on an urgent basis. So we think we meet the threshold because of the impacts. So we'll bring back that ordinance at the next meeting. So the council will have either of these ordinances to choose from when we come back. And prior to considering both those ordinances, we're going to go to Pacific Grove and we're going to listen to pickleball play with their shrouds, their attenuation, with their materials down.
And at the same time, we're going to continue to investigate other
Yes, sir.
locations to play pickleball.
Right, and
Which
we're gonna
could, if we come up with a brilliant idea, doing it inside the city, but we haven't found that
Yeah,
location.
no room. And we're gonna look at the 50-50 split instead of the 60-40 split.
And either Chip or Brian, just to confirm, to pass an urgency ordinance, we need 4 votes, is that correct?
Supermajority, ma'am, yes, 4/5.
Thank you.
That's right, 4/5.
So until the October meeting, things stay the same, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. The question was, until the next meeting, the policy stays the same, and that the answer to that is yes.
And
That would have been true no matter what today, because
Correct.
we didn't have an action item in front of us.
But hopefully neighbors and pickleball players will figure out a way to make it as pleasant as possible for everybody in the meantime. We hope. we hope. So I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. That was a wonderful discussion. We really appreciate your time and attendance and thoughts, and this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.
4 o'clock, Mr. Dawson.